Our annual January debate, despite all the tension of a cold wave sweeping over the city, we will start on time. We intend to finish by 7:15 before it gets too cold for most of us to survive. Please wish us luck. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Since Mr. Gupta has already done my part of the job, so I really don't have much to add to it. Apart from the fact that it's only in Calcutta that we see 1,000 plus showing up on a weather, on a climate when you have, winter knocking on the door and the temperature dipping to 11 degrees, sometimes 9 degrees too. So can we have a round of applause for the audience, please? We see that we have a full house today. I'll call upon Dr. Ramaditya Roy, Chairman, Social and Culture and Communication of Calcutta Club, to come up on the stage and say a few words.
Good evening. It's such a pleasure to see only the lush green field is full of you. A heartfelt thanks to CDC for organizing this debate. There's not much to speak because there will be a lot of speaking, and we are pretty sure that this is going to be a really scintillating debate.
We thank all our speakers and our guests for coming here today. We thank all of you. The club office and our office between them have distributed over 1,600 cards. Thank you for accessing them. Thank you for coming here to listen to the debate. There are still people pouring in. Calcutta Debating Circle, to quote my much missed friend Prasenjit Chatterjee, was formed by a heart surgeon with a brain surgeon with a heart, and a journalist without either of them. Since then, we've grown and we've had so many other associates joining us across generations. Mr. Raju Raman, who is immeasurably our senior, Shankar Ramalingam, my colleague, Swati Gautam, and so many others. And then the young brigade, whom we met first when they were in school, and they today form this club of lunatics called Calcutta Debating Circle. Now what do? We do two things. We train school and college students in debating, and we organize public debates like this. We are getting a little ambitious now. So all of you who have children at home, grandchildren at home, we are going to form and launch our activity club from the 1st of March, which will have regular training sessions according to age for students in schools below the class of 10, then 11 and 12, and then in colleges. So anybody who's interested in meeting other debaters and in learning how to debate, please keep an eye on our website. That's number one. The second announcement I wish to make, we have a YouTube channel, we have a Facebook page. Please visit our channel and our page and stay in touch with us, because without your support, we cannot have our activities. I don't think in any other club in India will we have the audience members waiting in the lawns from 3:15, 3:30 p.m. to catch a debate that starts at 4:30. We particularly wish to thank all our school sponsors, because many of you may not know, every June and July we get teams, debate trainers from Harvard and Yale and Oxford and Cambridge and the London School of Economics. In fact, any university that ranks in the World Debating Championship, we get trainers from those universities to train students in Kolkata. The CDC summer classroom trains between 700 to 1,000 students every summer. And we're very proud of that activity. We look forward to a day when we'll be able to involve many more of you in this.
I have the pleasure of inviting the moderator of this evening, Dr. Kunal Sarkar. Give a big round of applause.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Under a set of traffic lights in the city, 14 years ago, CDC was formed. And whatever CDC does, in its very humble and sincere capacity, CDC has to do one thing, and that is to remember my friend of more than 30 years, Dr. Prasenjit Chatterjee.
Well, debating is the science of analysis combined with the art of expression. We know that debates existed in the time of Plato and Aristotle in ancient Greece. in this country, the longest debate, the longest answer to a simple vexing question is contained in our own Bhagavad Gita.
Is the press so oppressed that they need to prostrate themselves to please rather than to present? Suppressed, oppressed, or depressed they may be, but their job is to present. And it is through the medium of presentation.
For those of you outside of the city, Shundip was one of the most accomplished neurosurgeons of our country, and him and I debated for our school and college for a good part of a decade and a half. We have really enjoyed his company, and three of us, in a strange fit of passion, 14 years ago, came up with the concept of Calcutta Debating Circle. The youngsters you have seen with us, and many more in the audience, is the true future of India. It is the intellectual capital of India, the India that perhaps some of us will leave behind. But on the same token, we owe a large debt of gratitude to the people whom we heard and we watched debating. There are amongst us speakers, intellectuals, whose writings we have read, whose speeches we have listened, and following them, some of us, through our professional quagmire, have taken certain intellectual time off. A great inspiration across generation for debaters, public discourse in the city of Kolkata. CDC today acknowledges our very own Johor Sarkar.
Just to thank CDC, I would much rather have been on the stage for debate, but then I think it's their way of saying that you're too old to move along, that's all. Whatever it is, this is a lovely, lovely forum. I have debated all over India. There's hardly one of the type of attraction, type of quality, and type of public involvement like Kolkata. So here's there, wishing all of you all the very best and a Happy New Year.
Ladies and gentlemen, member of the audience, once again, a heartfelt thank you for this 2,000 strong audience this evening who have come to listen to a debate, because the question the House asks to the society this morning is a question that is ringing through our minds. And it is a question that is not to be whispered. It is a question that is not to be brushed under the carpet. And it is a question that our society has been presented, especially so in the last few years, because amongst many, many, many binaries that we have seen in our life, another binary have sprung up. It is the bipolarity that has been introduced between Hinduism and Hindutva. Is it a fact that the all-encompassing liberalism is being kind of challenged by a political, national, racial identity? Or is it the timidity of Hinduism? Is it the ever-compromising postures of Hinduism that are being corrected by a society that today wants to express itself into a cultural, racial, and national identity? This question looms in society. This question looms in our minds. And this evening, to debate this issue, we have the company of speakers who've joined us from the city, from the state, and from far away. So, ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, this House has really put the motion in front of you that Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva. That is what the motion reads today. In support of the motion, we have 4 extremely erudite, elegant speakers. And the first of the speakers in support of the motion, who else? A man who with ominous regularity went on, annoying both the proposition and the opposition with great regularity. A man who with his comments would once excite the opposition and get the proposition into a state of depression, was once heading the Oil and Petroleum Ministry. But you know what happens when lubrication runs out in politics. It is not a very good state of affairs. A man who was born on the other side of the boundary and who has still been persisting in his quest to normalize the civil society relations across the borders. Respect him for that. It's always a great joy and pleasure to welcome amongst us our friend Mani Shankar Aiyar. Mani, welcome to Calcutta. A person who captivated us through his razor-sharp journalism. And then he entered the dreaded territory of politics. A person who really got the whole, amongst many others, it wasn't his singular fall though, was what is either considered to be India's greatest success or biggest flop show, that was the Anna Hazare movement. And that person, after his enthusiasm perhaps ran out, went back to politics, and he speaks his mind. He puts truth to power, and no doubt his YouTube channel nowadays is called Satya Hindi. Amongst many, many other channels, I am an avid follower of Satya Hindi, and so be you when you get a chance. Always a great pleasure to welcome Ashutosh amongst us. Ashutosh, please come. A very reputed television channel made a comment about a person whom I was very curious to meet, and it is only this evening that we've come face to face for the first time. I cannot mention that television channel because of intellectual property problems, but that television channel said there is one presenter who presents historical content with great fluidity, and her passion for history is only matched by her passion for eyeshadows. That is a strange combination, combining history with eyeshadows. And if any one of you ever believed that Bakhtiyar Khilji burned down Nalanda, go back home and listen to Ruchika Sharma, who's with us today. Ruchika, Calcutta awaits to listen to you. Please come with us. It was sometime in the 1970s that Maya Angelou wrote these words: "You may write me down in history with your twisted words." And thereafter she goes to say, "But still I rise." And these words, in a more cryptic kind of way, was retweeted a few days ago by a very good friend of mine, after the Supreme Court denied bail, to whom I hope you understand. My friend tweets, "You will rise." And this is a person whom the national media follows, not only for her razor-sharp speech, not only for her piercing political satire, but the national media follows her for her saris as well. And it is such a pleasure to welcome my great friend Mahua, all the way from Nadia. She comes over here, Mahua Moitra. So that completes the four, who will have a few minutes of breathing time, gathering their thoughts together, the four musketeers for the proposition. Now a debate has to have the other side. And for the other side, we have a man. We were very familiar, with the narrative that when the reconstruction of the Somnath temple was being planned, the Prime Minister of that time, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, apparently objected to it, did not approve of it. And that was a kind of celebrated narrative for India's liberalism for many, many years, till an engineer with a PhD in mechanical engineering demolishes such liberal narrative and many, many more. Calcutta welcomes today Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, an engineer with a PhD, BJP's leading national spokesperson, a person who's always been not only a pleasure, but an educational experience to listen to, who's traversed effortlessly from classrooms to boardrooms, from political think tanks to intellectual fora. He has supported public speaking and intellectual exercise in Calcutta whenever he's been requested to do so. And this evening, CDC welcomes our dear own Swapan Dasgupta. Swapan, please. The next time any one of you want to organize a debate, keep certain things in mind. And one such factor is, there are certain speakers whom you wish they came and spoke, but the moment you include them in the list, 3 other speakers will run away. They are a huge attraction for the audience and a great repellent for fellow debaters. And such a person who in his wisdom, whose the steel-cold logic that he comes up with, he's an advocate of the Supreme Court and the High Court, but he's demolished many a debater in his time. But it is not from the demolition job, but from the point of learning, his references, his interpretation. One of the very few people who has the ability to discuss Hindutva by sidestepping Savarkar. Calcutta welcomes you, J. Sai Deepak. Please come. Who said debating was not fashionable? Who said politics and fashion don't mix? And if you ever thought so in your wildest dreams, perish the thought. Because we have somebody who for the last few years has really fought hard from the heart of Bengal, from the heart of Asansol, a city where I believe she was born, schooled, educated. She goes back to the city to serve as its representative in the assembly. And we welcome this evening Agnimitra Paul from the Bharatiya Janata Party. Agnimitra, such a great pleasure to have you with us. If any one of you thought that these speakers, after their speaking and interjection, will go scot-free without any kind of evaluation, these days, in the days of SIR, it is a bit hazardous to use the term enumerator. I thought about it once, then I refrained from it. I rather use the word evaluator. We have 2 of them with us, 2 very distinguished people. One of them, a very noted economist, and if you ever get a chance, put our hands on his book of Asia Reborn and India Reborn. Prasenjit, we welcome you too amongst us, Mr. Prasenjit Basu. Friends, I've heard of people, though for good luck of a verse, I wasn't one of them, who has been doctors through generations. We have studied with people who were 5, 6 generations of doctors, but I've seldom come across people who've been historians over a span of at least 3 generations and live amongst a group of people. I think in their family, probably 80% of them pursue history. But whenever we want to listen to anything, to get clarity, to get information about the goings-on of modern Indian history, you do not look much further than Professor Mridula Mukherjee, ex-professor of JNU. Ma'am, thank you ever so much for sparing your time. On that note, members of the House, ladies and gentlemen, this evening we commence the debate that in the opinion of the House, Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva. The rules of debating are pretty crystal clear, plain and simple. Each one of the debaters will be speaking for 10 minutes. They have a timer in front of them, and it's a sincere request, please stick to your time. After they have spoken, each one of our young interjectors will come, ask them a question, and they have 3 minutes to compose a reply and any supplementary points they have wished to make during their interjection period. Following the interjection, each one of our discussants will make their summary for a time of 7 minutes, and after which is the most crucial part of the debate, and that is this House of almost 2,000 strong members will vote on the motion this evening. And a few things, this is a debate. This is a debate which is in front of a house. This is not the television pigeonhole debating. So choral singing is greatly discouraged. Do not shout in chorus. Do not utter expletives which really are out of context. And in your flood of whatabouteries, you can make an opportunity for the next television debate, but it is not this one this evening. So with these plain and simple rules, this House asks the question this evening, and we propose that Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva. And opening the arguments this evening will be Mr. Mani Shankar Aiyar.
Mr. Chairman, in the words of Swami Vivekananda in Chicago in 1893, brothers and sisters, Happy New Year. So Hinduism is a great spiritual religion. Hindutva is a political tract. Hindutva came only in 1923. For thousands of years before Hindutva, Hinduism faced trial and tribulation, and yet survived, indeed flourished, with no need of Hindutva protection. For example, the first census in 1872 found, after what Hindutvists call a millennium of slavery, that less than a quarter of India's population had embraced Islam. Hinduism is resilient, self-sufficient, in no need of protection. It is entirely capable of protecting itself. Hindutva is not the protector of Hinduism. Hindutva is the perverter of Hinduism. It Semiticizes the Sanatan Dharma based on an imported idea of territorial nationalism as established by Savarkar's biography of Joseph Mazzini, and embellished in practice by Dr. Munje and Guruji Golwalkar through their admiration, respectively, of Mussolini's fascism and the racist theories of Hitler's Nazism. What I hope to establish in the next 9 minutes is that faced with a choice between Savarkar's Hindutva and the Hinduism of Gandhi or Swami Vivekananda, there is no way their Hinduism can be protected or promoted by Savarkar's Hindutva. For there is an unresolvable contradiction between Gandhi's collection, the essence of Hinduism, and Savarkar's 1923 publication, The Essentials of Hindutva. For, while on the first page of Savarkar's book is emblazoned the slogan, Hinduize politics and militarize Hindudom, Gandhiji, in Young India, October 1921, defined what he said was the creed of Hinduism as the search for truth through non-violent means. While Savarkar wrote, Hindus understand themselves as Hindus through acts of violence, the Mahatma wrote, the Hindu has an old age civilization. He is essentially non-violent. You've seen that Hindutva vigilantes beat up and even kill anyone suspected of hoarding, eating, or transporting beef, cow's meat. While Gandhiji wrote, it is a denial of Hinduism and of ahimsa to kill a human being to protect a cow. How then can Hinduism rely on thugs and murderers calling themselves Hindutvavadis to protect itself? Hindutva is Hinduism in paranoia. It asks 80% Hindus to quiver in front of 14% Muslims. What is Hindutva? Hindutva is a BJP leader slapping a blind, hungry tribal girl because she attends a Christmas lunch in a church. Hindutva raids shopping malls to tear down Christmas decorations. And when it comes to Buddhism, Swami Vivekananda at Chicago on 26 September 1893 described Buddhism as the fulfillment of Hinduism and went on to affirm that the separation of Brahman from Buddha is the cause of the downfall of India. That is what Swami Vivekananda says. Now contrast this with Hindutva. Savarkar described Buddhism as an existential threat to all Indians, to all Hindus. He described it as the ultimate negation of Hindutva, bearing the opiate of universalism and non-violence. He said it was disastrous to national virility and even the existence of the Hindu race. He viewed Ashoka's non-violence, I'm quoting him, as being antithetical to being a Hindu, and thus also unnatural in the sense of being against nature. Now let's turn to the epics. Gandhiji read the Ramayana as the unfolding of Ramrajya, while Savarkar described, and I'm going to quote him, Savarkar described Lord Ramachandra's victory over the king of Lanka. That is the words of Savarkar. The victory over the king of Lanka as the final stage in the colonization of the land. That's how he views it, which created a unified nation of Hindus, making a territory conquered by Hindus a holy place meant only for Hindus. What connection is there between Gandhiji's Ramayana and Savarkar's Ramayana? Tonight, you have to choose between Gandhi's Ramayana and Savarkar's, between Gandhi's Mahabharata and Savarkar's. Gandhi and Savarkar first met in London in 1910. Savarkar quoted the Gita to urge warfare as a duty that Hinduism imposes upon its followers. Gandhi replied that the real message of the Mahabharata is the futility of war, the emptiness of violence. Later, writing in his journal, Young India, in August 1931, Gandhiji wrote, and I quote, "The author of the Mahabharata has not established the necessity of physical warfare. On the contrary, he has proved its futility. He has made the victors shed tears of sorrow and repentance, and has left them nothing but a legacy of misery. Hindutva regards as true Bharatis only those whose Pitrubhu and Punyabhu lies between the Sindhu and the ocean, thus excluding Muslims and Christians who look towards Makkah and Jerusalem or Rome to pray. What did Gandhi say? On the other hand, Gandhi said, quote, I do not believe in the exclusive divinity of the Vedas. I believe in the Bible, the Quran, the Zindavesta, to be as much divinely inspired as the Vedas. And what of Swami Vivekananda, who I think in Calcutta is called Swami Vivekananda? He wrote in his famed essay, I Believe, he said, I accept all religions and worship with them all. I worship God with every one of them in whatever form they worship Him. I shall go to the mosque of the Mohammedan. I shall enter the Christian's church and kneel before his crucifix. I shall enter the Buddhist temple where I shall take refuge in his law. I shall go into the forest and sit down in meditation with the Hindu. And what did Savarkar write? He said, even after the horrible experience of 1,000 years or so, the Hindus went on tolerating even such a hideous religion as Islam. This is Hindutva. While Swami Vivekananda wrote from Almora on 10 June 1898, for our own homeland, a juncture of two great systems, Hindu and Islam, Vedanto brain and Islam body is the only hope. For the protection of Hinduism, would you turn to Gandhiji and Swamiji, or to Savarkar and Golwalkar and Sadhvi Pragya Thakur? Or indeed, would you trust Sudhanshu Trivedi above the Mahatma? Or that Hampstead Hindu, Sri Swapan Dasgupta, over Swami Vivekananda? Long before the Calcutta Debating Circle conceived today's debate, writing in Young India 100 years ago, in April 1926, Gandhiji affirmed with amazing prescience, many styling themselves Sanatanis stalk the earth. He went on to say, God's grace will descend on those who do His will, not on those who simply mutter Ram, 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 Ram. It is such Santanis muttering Ram, Ram that we will be hearing from this evening of how they have saved Hinduism by smashing mosques to smithereens and building glitzy temples.
Please.
Dhanyavad. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Please keep your emotions to yourself. This is Calcutta Debating Circle and this is the Calcutta Club. I believe I do not have to repeat it anymore. It is almost, you mentioned Vivekananda about 5 times, Mani. If you look back at the picture of the Chicago Art Institute, as Swamiji was sat there, just prior to his lecture, to the left of Swamiji was sat a lean figure. We do not trouble to identify who he was. He was Angarika Dharmapala. And it is from the friendship between Vivekananda and Angarika Dharmapala that they come back to India and the revival of Sri Lankan Buddhism starts. And starts from where? From College Street in Kolkata. That is where the Mahabodhi Society is. And as time would have it, just a year before 1893, in 1892, I think it will be referred to, it is from this city that the word Hindutva is coined for the first time. And on that note, we ask Swapan Dasgupta.
Dr. Kunal Sarkar, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the script which we first heard 25 years ago. It's an unending script. But before I come to the long-playing record which got stuck, let me do some customary thank yous. I want to thank the Calcutta Debating Circle. I want to thank the President and the committee members of Calcutta Club for finally recognizing the force of an idea which has captivated India, which has taken India by storm since 2014, which hopefully in the coming months will also overwhelm Bengal. I'm talking about the topic, and what you see is in the largest font size, the term Hindutva. Because this subject, this debate is about Hindutva, but it is premised on a spurious assumption. And in his very erudite speech, which was about Gandhi versus Savarkar, my friend Shankar Aiyar completely forgot to actually specify what exactly is Hinduism. I'm glad he didn't mention the term Gentoo, which was more familiar in his part of the world, in Tamil Nadu, as the British at one time called it. The term Hinduism, as we know it, is basically a 19th century construct. It is a term which tries to amalgamate various tendencies, various beliefs, various sampradayas which come together. This is a polyistic faith. This is a faith which cannot be defined as only belonging to the Bhagavad Gita. It cannot only be defined as belonging to the Ramayana, important as these are. Shankar Aiyar's Brahmanical Hinduism in the Aiyar Hinduism of Mani in Tamil Nadu, in Tanjavur district, is strictly vegetarian. My faith, of a very Shakta kind, is strictly non-vegetarian. Does that make Mani more true to the faith than me? The point is, these are wrong assumptions. You incorporate various beliefs. When Dr. Radhakrishnan spoke about Hinduism as a way of life, what he meant was that do not try and codify it like Christianity. Do not codify it like Islam. And Savarkar, the man, the villain of the piece according to Mani, was very clear. He made it very clear that Hinduism, by which he meant the religious faith of various individuals who comprise India, is not the same as Hindutva. Because Hindutva carries the collective experience of all people who can be called Hindus. Which is why some of us prefer the term Sanatan Dharma. But that does not matter for the moment. There are multiple identities which are embraced there. If you're talking about ecumenical identities, there are many. Which is why we cannot have a church in Hinduism. But there are certain important things. If you say, look at what are the religious practices of the so-called Hindus, you'll find that one of the most important things which defines it is the fact that they go on tirths. They go on pilgrimages all over the country. And those pilgrimages are very important because they define the geography of India. The 4 dhams, situated north, south, east, west. The Shakti Peeths, which we have as a Shakta, you can find out. The most eastern one is somewhere off Chittagong, Chattogram as you might call it. And its most western one is Hinglaj in Baluchistan. In other words, the faith of Sanatan Dharma is intimately linked with the geography of India, which is why we call it a sacred geography. And therefore this experience of people are very, very important. So when we say that Hindutva constitutes a significant threat to Hinduism and that Hinduism needs protection, it's important to define what exactly. Are there any threats to the people? Are there any threats to the Sanatan Dharma? Are there any threats to the Hindus? Mani was quite categorical. There has never been any threat. There has never been any threat. When the Prime Minister the other day was celebrating or commemorating 1,000 years of the vandalism which led to the destruction of Somnath, was he merely daydreaming? Was that fantasy? Did Ahalyabai Holkar create a Somnath which looked into Somnath, the ruins of that old temple, and said, one day we will get these back? Did Ahalyabai Holkar build the present Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, which the Nandi was looking into something which we call the Gyanvapi, because that was also destruction? Did Hindus not need protection from that? Did Hindus not need protection, or did they easily give way to what is called Macaulay's intellectual assault on everything we know? Macaulay is significant, not because of what he meant, but what he produced. And he produced an entire generation of people who hated themselves, who hated their own inheritance, who wanted to model themselves on something which they were not. And it was that which was constituted a big threat to what we call Hinduism. Mani spoke at length about Swami Vivekananda. Of course, he got one thing wrong. It is pronounced Swami Vivekananda, but Hindutva wasn't created. The term didn't originate with Savarkar, and neither does Savarkar have a proprietary hold over the term Hindutva. It was, in fact, first used in a public way in this very city in 1894 by a very Bengali person, Chandranath Basu. Of course, that defies what you want to say. Because in this city, it's become fashionable to say that what goes by the name of Hindu may actually be a Gandhadharma. Someone said it. A very important person said it in this place. It has also become extremely fashionable to say that Ma Kali represents permissiveness. I think there are people on the other side who are well familiar with that sort of contention of looking at Ma Kali as an epitome of a cigarette ad or maybe an alcohol ad. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee once, and he is the person who created Mother India. He was the inspiration behind Mother India. He once wrote something which I'm very fond of quoting all the time. And I think it's worth considering. And he wrote, "And what shall I say of that weakest of human beings, the half-educated, anglicized and brutalized Bengali Babu, who congratulates himself on his capacity to dine off a plate of beef, as if this act of gluttony constituted in itself unimpeachable evidence of a perfectly cultivated intellect. That was Bankim Babu. And I think that's quite true. That Hindutva bashing is the latest fashion statement of today. And what is significant about Hindutva is that it has taught Indians, it has taught a very large number of Indians, the importance of fighting back, of not taking things lying down. It is the tradition of Shivaji, it is tradition of Savarkar, it is the tradition of Bhagat Singh, it is the tradition of all the revolutionaries. That is the Hindutva. It is the tradition which Aurobindo pointed out. And that is what they want to undermine.
Time's up.
And allow India to be trampled over in every respect by forces who do not sympathize with our basic civilizational values. Thank you.
Thank you, Shapanda. Thank you. Putting Hindutva, Bankim Chandra in perspective, but perhaps I think as the evening goes on, we will dwell more on the topic that by the time we focused on Hindutva, we perhaps defocused from the nationalistic independence agenda somewhat. And on that note, a little change is necessary because after Shapanda's very aggressive opening, it has to be countered by none other than Mahua Moitra. Come up.
Thank you very much. Quite wonderful to be back. These lawns of my childhood. Anyway, I'm glad to be speaking after Shapanda, who actually I'm very fond of. But the good thing with going after after Shapanda is that he ad-libs so much that it is so easy to just, pick up like so. So when Dada says three things, he says, in this city in 1894, actually no, Dada Chandranath Bosu wrote it not in 1894, it was 1892. Then he says, my non-vegetarian something. I love it. It is actually our Hinduism, Shapanda, that allows you to eat that chicken patty here and not say anything about it, because if it was your Hindutva 1 kilometer away in the Calcutta Maidan, just for eating that chicken patty, your brothers might have beaten you to pulp. Right? You tell us about that half-educated Babu who ate beef. And I remember reading quite a few columns about your beef-eating history in Oxford. But be that as it may, let me get to the point. So let us start. I think it's actually quite wonderful that we are having this debate in Calcutta. Even with all the Ghuspetias in the audience, I think it is one of the few cities in which we can have this debate today. Because both Hinduism and the word Hindutva can be traced back to two Bengali gentlemen at either end of the long 19th century. One is Raja Ram Mohan Roy, to whom, as an English word, Hinduism is traced back to in 1816, and he took it to mean a fairly capacious term for the diverse spiritual traditions deriving from the Vedantic corpus. But then we go on to Chandranath Bosu, and Chandranath Basu invented, I say the word invented, coined Hindutva in 1892. He's also, like Savarkar, has a very interesting history, and not a lot of people know about it, because when my colleague, Mr. Shankar Aiyar, was talking about 1923, yes, Savarkar wrote his book in 1923, but way before that, 30 years before that, in 1892 was when the term Hindutva was coined in this city. And Chandranath was a native of Hooghly. It's a place from which Shapanda likes to fight elections and often lose them. But he was a native of Hooghly, and he graduated from Presidency College, and equally proficient in English and Bangla, served as a deputy magistrate in Dhaka, and then was an official translator to the Bengal government for over 30 years. He originally wrote in English, and then he wrote a review in Bengali of Krishnakanter Will, which caught Rishi Bonkim's eye, and Bonkim Da, I'm sure our Prime Minister wouldn't mind me referring to him since he set the tone like the same way. So when Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay read the review, he encouraged him to say, why don't you write in Bengali? So he starts writing in Bongo Darshan, which by the way is the same literary magazine in which the first two stanzas of Bande Mataram were first published in 1875. So Chandranath, while his time in presidency, used to frequent Brahmo discussions and was quite sort of liberal. But then he meets this very orthodox Brahmin Pundit called Shashodhar Tarkachuramuni in Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's house. And he returns to religious scriptures with a passion. And he starts advocating a very rigid sort of return to religious scriptures. He writes something called Poshupati Shangbad, then writes something called Shakuntala Tattva. And again, there in Shakuntala Tattva, he very interestingly compares Kalidas's Shakuntala to Shakespeare's Juliet, and he highlights the victory of self-restraint and penance, which he calls dharma, over the uncontrolled and unbridled love, which he calls adharma. So Omiya Prasad Sen, the prominent historian who just passed away, he said that Chandranath's work was a thoughtless application of hardcore orthodoxy where he was trying to find conservative values where none existed. Anyway, in 1892, Chandranath produces his magnum opus, which is called Hindutva, Hindur Prokrito Itihash. And that is where the term Hindutva first comes in. And this envelops a sort of variety of traditional and often very contradictory beliefs. Chandranath goes on to portray Hindus as fundamentally superior to people of all other faiths, says Hindu traditions are superior to Western culture, says India shall not be a homeland for foreign religions like Islam and Christianity. He says Tantra is an integral part of Hinduism. It represents an inherent Hindu manliness and vigor. And he then writes 2 pamphlets, and for all the women in the audience, you'll quite enjoy it. I mean, it's quite peachy. In these pamphlets, Chandranath says, he says, the superiority of the Hindu woman is in her dedication to cooking in the kitchen for long hours because she can take the heat and smoke. He then writes Shabitri Tattva. He says Shabitri is the ideal Hindu wife. And then besides this, the other interesting things he did, again, I'm speaking here on the second oldest club led by, for the first time, a lady. He supported child marriage. He says this led to the development of the ideal housewife. He prized female chastity as a social gift, mind you. He opposed reforms in female education. He opposed widow remarriage. He dissented against the 1891 Consensual Age of Consent Act, which raised the age of sexual intercourse consent of women from 10 to 12, which said that, it would be rape if it was more than under the age of between 10 and 12. He says, no, the age of 10 is absolutely okay. So this is his concept of Hindutva. This is the man who gave us Hindutva. And this is what you're proud of. But Chandranath, for all his faults, his Hindutva was confined to a religious, a scriptural, and a literary framework. Then what happens? Then comes along 1923. Who do we have? We have Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. He is the one who gives Hindutva the core political spin. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have all the Ghuspaityas in the audience because Chandranath's Hindutva was actually quite boring, It was Savarkar who tied this Hindutva to a theory of monolithic Indian nationalism, this territorial, racial, cultural, political nationalism that had no room for Islam, it had no room for Christianity, no other form of consciousness that couldn't be traced back to a Hindu core. Now, it's also important to note here that the very word Hindu is not in the Vedas, it's not in the Upanishads, it's not in any Vedantic Upanishadic corpus, it's not in the epics, it's not in the Dharma Shastras, it's not in any major Sanskrit or Prakrit literary text, it is not even in the majority of the Puranas. Savarkar relied on a fake Purana, and the reason I call it a fake Purana was because it is called the Bhavishya Purana, and the reason I call it a fake Purana was in this Purana you have reference to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday as days of the week and reference to Queen Victoria. Now Queen Victoria's timeline was 1819 to 1901. So if any Purana which made a reference to this had to be a fake Puran. And then Savarkar, what he says is, he says militarized Hinduism and Hinduized militarism. When after Savarkar pleads with the British, gets a get out of jail free card, remember he goes out and he boycotts the Quit India movement. When Gandhiji calls for the Quit India movement in 1942, Savarkar's boycotting it. He's head of the Hindu Mahasabha. He boycotts it and he is asking members of the Hindu Mahasabha, please get into the British army. And he uses the term Hinduized militarism and militarized Hinduism. This is his idea of Hindutva. It is political, racial, cultural. It has nothing to do with either religion or spirituality, which is what Hinduism as we know it is. And when you talk of, Shapunda again was referring to this, Savarkar actually wrote, he said, you know, he hated Muslims, but he said that the one good thing about Muslims is when you're talking about Muslims in the medieval age, they went around raping all these Hindu women and giving birth to more and more Muslims. And Hindus should actually take a leaf out of that book, because this suicidal Hindu idea of chivalry, of treating enemy women with respect, was going to do no good for the predominance of the Hindu race. Now, as Hindus, we can accept the diversity of practices under rubric Hinduism as a modern concept, and we can argue about how liberal it is, how open it is. On one side, you can have the spirituality of Ramakrishna Dev, which is highly accommodative. You have Belur Mott that has Jishu Pujo, which has Jishu Utsav, where you have a aroti done with cake and flowers, and, you know, that's on one side, where he regarded even Jesus as a form of divinity, which was absolutely okay with Ramakrishna. He saw no conflict in that. And, but even the RSS, I would say, they do not confuse Hindutva with a religion. Hindutva is a political expression that seeks to consolidate Hindus in an exclusionary platform that is adversarial. That is the soul. If there is one word that is the divide between Hinduism on one side and Hindutva on the other, it was adversarial. Hindutva believes that as a political platform, mine is the only way, and Hinduism believes as a religion and a spiritual platform that there is room for a lot of others along the way. So for instance, while there's some Hindu practices, 1 minute, where Hindu practices and Hinduism can imagine love between Hindus and Muslims, a Hindutva practitioner will say, no, this is love jihad. So a Bengali Hindu eating meat will offer meat to Ma Kali, but a practitioner of Hindutva will say, that's not on. So a Hindu doesn't need to bother about the fact that there are lots of things that we do, including imagining Ma Kali in a form and referring to Krishna as the love of my life. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not blasphemy. But for a Hindutva, that is blasphemy. So the core question here is, does Hinduism need to protect itself from Hindutva? I would say that the best way to continue to protect Hinduism is to continue to realize that Hindutva is there because Hindutva was there, because Hinduism was there. Hindu ache bole Hindutva holo. It is not the other way around. So in a way, when Hinduism is religious, it is spiritual, and the only need of the hour is to free it from this Hindutva sort of brand of rabid, noxious, political nationalism that has overtaken it. And
we've got to wind up.
Sorry. Mr. Manishankar, I referred to this. I'm going to wind up right here. Now, when we're talking of Calcutta Club, one of the most important things about Calcutta Club that I remember from my childhood used to be the Christmas lunch. And while everyone wore their Santa hats inside, including, I'm sure, Mr. Dasgupta, and enjoyed his turkey and Christmas pudding, you had lots of people going outside and saying, "Oi dekchi shota hocche Calcutta Club. Shekhane elitera boshe Santa tupi pore tara bideshi khabar khaye." But you know what? Even today in Bengal, that same thing has been replicated in Park Street. No one's tried to ruin it what was happening in Calcutta Club. That's the difference between Hinduism and Hindutva. We have tried to replicate this somewhere else rather than coming in and saying, let's destroy this once and for all. So that's the classic difference between there. Hindutva is there because we as Hinduism allow it to, not the other way around. Thank you so much.
Well said, Mahua, well said. Thank you. Thank you. I think apart from the four speakers on the either side, there are two speakers who are participating in this debate in spirit. One is Gandhi on one side and Savarkar on the other. And when these two people first met, in the India House, I think it was 1902 or 1903, Gandhi walks into Savarkar's room who's frying prawns. And Savarkar offers Gandhi a plate of fried prawns, which he refuses. He says, I'm a vegetarian. To which Savarkar says that, look, you know, even when Ram fought Ravan, he had to fight a war. So do you really think you want to be this vegetarian pacifist the way we are? So in this debate, if we could, we would have taken two closing speakers as Savarkar on one side and Gandhi on the other, but probably it won't be possible. Mahua spoke at length about Chandranath Basu. He was a great fellow, you know what? He is the only person whom I know of who changed schools because his teacher's pronunciation was not good. In the first part of his life, he was such a stickler for true English education that he changed schools because his teacher had what he thought was a defective pronunciation, and it is this man who comes up with the theory of Hindutva. And let's see what Agnimitra's got to tell us right now. Agnimitra Paul. Agnimitra.
A very good evening to the lovely audience present here. I'll be speaking against the motion. But before I start my speech, I want to light the candle. This candle is for the innumerable lives lost in the past few months in Bangladesh, in Pahalgaon, in West Bengal, in Bharat. Deepu Dash, a simple textile industry worker, burnt alive. He was a citizen of Bangladesh. Sharad Chandra Mani shifted from abroad with a dream to live with his family in his motherland, hacked to death. Rana Pratap Boiragi, a businessman and media house owner, shot dead in Bangladesh. Khokun Dash, Boijendra Bishwas, Joy Mahapatro, who was butchered yesterday. Or my Hindu sister, a widow, tortured, tied to a tree, hair chopped off and gang raped a few days back in Bangladesh. What is common is all of them were Hindus. Honorable Chair, respected judges, and my fellow participants. Before deciding whether Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva, we must confront a more uncomfortable truth. Why does Hindu suffering, whether in Bangladesh or Bengal, so often met with secular silence? Why does some of us doesn't have the guts or the courage to give leadership to a candlelight march for these Hindu brothers and sisters, but you raise your voice for people of Gaza, Palestine, Cuba, or Venezuela? This motion assumes Hinduism and Hindutva are opposing forces, but this assumption collapses the moment we look at ground reality across borders and within them. I stand firmly against this motion because it debates an imagined threat while actually ignoring the real ones. Hinduism stands with the victim and selective silence calculates convenience. Hinduism is not a fragile faith. It is a civilization, ancient, plural, and resilient. Hindutva is not an external ideology attacking Hinduism. It is the civilizational self-awareness of Hindu society. To argue that Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva is to argue that a civilization must apologize for recognizing itself. Hinduism asks, what is right? And selective silence asks, who is powerful? Bangladesh and Bengal, different nations, but the same silence. Let us cross borders. In Bangladesh, Hindus have been repeatedly targeted, temples vandalized, homes burnt, individuals like Dipu Dash brutally killed and burnt alive. These are not historical wrongs. These are present realities. Where is the secular outrage? Where are the human rights alarms? Now return to Bengal. In Shamsherganj, Murshidabad, 2 Hindus were hacked to death in cold blood. Why was Harogobindo Das and Chandan Das butchered? Not because they were CPM cadres, not because they ever rebelled, because they were Hindus and sculptors who used to make Hindu deities. In Murshidabad and Malda, hundreds of Hindus had to flee from their own land, just like our forefathers who had to flee from Bangladesh and Pakistan in 1947 and 1971. Why? Why? In 2026, we Hindus have to flee from our own land in Bengal, I want to ask you. In Birbhum, families were displaced only because they were Hindus. In South Chobbish Pargona, Canning and Basanti, Hindu villagers on a regular basis faces intimidation. During Hindu festivals in Howrah and Hooghly, processions faced restrictions, while violence was sanitized as clashes, not riots. Across borders, across political systems, the pattern is the same. Hindu victims are normalized, Hindu pain is minimized, and Hindu identity is problematized. Hinduism remembers every wound. Selective silence forgets. Selective secularism is the common thread. This is not coincidence. This is ideology. When Hindus are attacked, silence is called responsibility. Inaction is called neutrality. But when Hindus organize, speak, or assert cultural identity, it is labeled majoritarian. It is criminalized as Hindutva. This is pseudo-secularism. Hinduism speaks for all. Speaks for all, without filters. Selective silence chooses causes, not cause, but conscience. The false Hinduism, Hindutva narrative, says Hinduism is spiritual, while Hindutva is political. This divide is artificial. Hindutva doesn't mean forced worship. Hindutva doesn't mean cultural uniformity. Hindutva doesn't mean suppression of diversity. Hindutva does not demand that everyone pray in the same way or prays at all. Example, within Hindu society itself, there are Shaivas, Vaishnavas, Shaktas, Advaitins, atheistic schools like Charvak and tribal traditions all coexisting. Hindutva does not mean one culture, one language, one ritual. Example, Durga Puja in Bengal looks nothing like Onam in Kerala or Kumbh in Prayagraj. North Indian Ram traditions differ widely from South Indian ones, yet all are accepted as Hindus. Uniformity has never been a Hindu civilizational demand. It means civilizational continuity. India's diversity is an integral part of Hindu civilization. It survived because Hindu civilization allowed it. Pluralism is not threatened by Hindutva. It is protected by it. Hindu society did not weaken due to assertion. It weakened because of us. We are fragmented. We are divided. We are not united. Look at today's Bengal. Why are we quiet? When rally of Muharram gets priority over the immersion of Ma Durga in the land of Shakti. Why? The problem of illegal infiltration is from the days of left, when the then Home Minister Indrajit Gupta accepted it. Then why is it taken as a sin if we speak on the grave dangers of infiltration and demographic changes? Why is it so that there will be two faces of law in our state? Muharram rally will be allowed to brandish weapons, while police cases will be imposed on Hindus participating in Ram Navami rally showcasing lathis. Why? Why pseudo-secularists always fail to take note? For every Durga Puja, Kartik Puja, Ram Navami, Hindus are compelled to go to the court for permission. Why? Why has it become a regular incident to see our Hindu deities' heads being chopped off and taken in prison vans, temples being desecrated and none being arrested? Is this called secularism? Are the Hindus of this state and country, which had been divided on the basis of religion in 1947, are we expected to be tortured lying low? No. So today's real debate is not Hinduism versus Hindutva. It is justice versus selective silence. True secularism versus pseudo-secularism. Because true secularism demands equal concern and pseudo-secularism decides whose pain matters, vote bank matters. The real threat to Hinduism is not Hindutva. From Bangladesh to Bengal, the message to Hindus has been the same.
We've got to
be
wind
victims, just take 2 minutes. Be victims, but do not speak. Hindutva, sorry madam, Hindutva refuses that silence. Hinduism does not need protection from Hindutva. It needs protection from those pseudo-secularists whose pen weeps for Umar Khalid, but falls silent when Hindus die in Bangladesh, in Pahalgaon, in Shamsherganj. At Tamanna's name, even poetry loses its violence, its voice. This isn't humanity. It's a carefully chosen silence. My previous speaker spoke about the Pattis incident, but forgot to speak about Firad Hakim, who said, Dawat Islam, come and join my dharma. And another colleague said, 70%, we are 70%, 30% of the Hindus will be chopped off.
Got to wind up.
This motion is not about protecting Hinduism. It is about policing Hindu identity. And therefore, Honorable Chair, I reject this motion completely. And I end it with the words of Swamiji, whose 163rd birth anniversary we are celebrating tomorrow, who said, I am a proud Hindu. Yes, Swamiji, I am also a proud Hindu. And let me promise you, Swamiji, you said, arise, awake, and stop not till you achieve your goal, and we will not stop till we achieve our goal. Thank you so much.
Agnimitra, well spoken. I was getting a bit concerned because I thought a couple of pages were left. But extremely well spoken, extremely well spoken. On that note, I can make one absolutely infallible assertion. She is absolutely ready for the next election. So, she is absolutely ready for the next election. Speeches and everything are made up. The date is announced and Agnimitra is raring to go. Agnimitra, well done. Agnimitra, you've quoted a lot of history. Half of your speech was about Bangladesh. But did we not pay for the step half taken that the point when the previous generation thought that partition was inevitable, what should have followed is a population exchange. That happened between Greece and Turkey in 1923 because we took half a step and we shied away from the other. There is no second situation in the world when a minority can be left exposed in a society which has been formed on the basis of religion, because the rest of their history will only be victimization. So I think if we had the courage of conviction to take one step, it would have been barbaric. So was partition. Partition was barbaric by no means. But population exchange was the real crux of the matter which we looked away from. And I think you will comment on it later. But she has given you a whole lot of questions on your hand. And I think Ashutosh, being the journalist he is well equipped. Ashutosh, fire away.
My previous speaker said very proudly that she is a proud Hindu. I would have been happier if she had said, I'm a proud Hindu and I'm a proud Indian too. I would have been happier if she talked about her blood boils because of Deepu was killed, a Bangladeshi. Her blood should also have boiled by Akhlaq, who was a proud Indian, who was a Bharatiya. And there is a government in UP which withdraws case against those who perpetrated that crime on the humanity without any shame. Without any shame. In today's India, I must say, no topic is more relevant and important than this. Does Hinduism need protection from Hindutva? I must admire the courage of the Calcutta Debating Circle and their commitment to the nation for choosing a topic like this. I was in a hospital for 2 days due to severe gastroenteritis, but I was determined to be here to speak on the subject, come what may. Because in today's India, no dharma is bigger than protecting the Hindu dharma and Hinduism from the modern jars of Hindutva, who has successfully camouflaged Hinduism with Hindutva. Hindutva is neither Hinduism nor Hindu dharma. Hindutva is a political ideology which uses Hindu dharma for political gains. Nothing else. It has no relation of any kind with Hinduism. Hindu dharma is our lifeblood. It is the most glorious of the ancient civilization, whereas Hindutva is a recent construct, a product of 20th century. The greatest human being to have walked on this earth after Buddha, Mahatma Gandhi defines Hinduism and says, Hinduism tells everyone to worship God according to his own faith or dharma. So it lives at peace with all the religions. Peace with all the religions. This is what we understand by Hinduism. This is what I was taught by my parents, who are devout Hindu. I grew up with many Muslim friends and we are like families. But now in the name of Hindutva, it is being taught that Hindus have been at war with Islam for more than 1200 years. And Hindus cannot afford to lose this war. This is what RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat has said in 2023 in Ahmedabad. But he's saying nothing new. The second chief of RSS, Golwalkar, writes in his book, Bunch of Thoughts, Muslim, Christians and communists are three enemies of India. Now it is being said that this part of the book has been withdrawn. This argument does not hold good, as on the ground this is being practiced day in and day out. Despite Bhagwat saying that without Muslim, Hindutva is not complete. When we look around in today's India, we witness violence, lies and untruth all over. In the name of Hinduism, minorities are being targeted, demonized, mob lynched, their houses bulldozed, they are put in jail for no substantial reasons, their religious places are damaged, mosques are desecrated, churches are attacked, Christmas Day celebration are vandalized, and perpetrators are freely roaming around with no fear of law and police. A Harvard-educated minister garlands those. We have to understand this and how tragic this is. A Harvard-educated minister garlands those who were convicted by the court for mob lynching. A BJP MP on the floor of the House abuses a fellow Muslim MP and no action is taken. Rather, he was given bigger responsibility. The Prime Minister calls Muslims infiltrators who would snatch Mangal Sutra of Hindu women. The Chief Minister of UP openly gave the slogan of 80-20 and batenge to katenge. And this all is happening in the name of Sanatana Hinduism. As recently as last month, the Christmas Day celebration were vandalized in many parts of the country. But when these goons got bail from the court, they all were garlanded and fed sweets as if they were back from the battlefield after winning a war. A medical college named after a Hindu deity is shut because majority of the students who got admitted through open competition were Muslims. Is it not shameful? This cannot happen without the go-ahead from the top. This has to be said loud and clear and boldly. This is a part of the larger Hindutva design to make Muslims second-class citizens without any civil and democratic rights and have to live at the mercy of Hindus, as was spelled by Golwalkar in his book, We and Our Nation Who Defied. Now contrast this with what Gandhi wrote. The essence of Hinduism is truth and non-violence. The active manifestation of non-violence is love. The absence of ill will. Love is anathema to them. Every statement from the senior ministers and chief ministers smacks of hatred towards Muslims, and their media friends are more than happy to magnify their hateful statements with more vigor. In the shadow of protecting Hinduism, they all have become hate mongers and giving Hinduism a bad name. But why are we surprised? Because in their Hindutva framework, the truth, non-violence and tolerance are called perverted virtues. Please understand this. Because in their Hindutva framework, the truth, non-violence and tolerance are called perverted virtues by the high priest of Hindutva, Savarkar. Savarkar writes in 6 glorious epochs of history, every Hindu seems to have been made to stuck along with his mother milk. This nectar-like advice that religious tolerance is a virtue. It is this confused religious thought, the distorted sense of virtues, and the blind religious tolerance which culminated in the religious suicide of Hindus. We were greatly disgusted when we saw those shameful pictures of rapist of Balkis Bano being garlanded and celebrated like heroes. Did we hear anything from the top? No. When they came out of jail, we cried when we saw supporters of Hindutva openly siding with rapists of young girl in Kathua in Jammu. But I was not surprised as I found an answer in Savarkar's writing. And this I quote, but because of then prevalent perverted religious ideas about the chivalry to women, which ultimately proved highly detrimental to Hindu community, neither Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji, nor Chimmaji Appa could do wrong to Muslim women. Is rape justifiable because it is seen through the prism of civilizational war? Can by any stretch of imagination can it be called Hinduism? No. Never. This is not Hinduism. Hinduism teaches us Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Hinduism teaches us Satyamev Jayate. Hinduism teaches us Ahimsa Parmo Dharma. Hatred is not Hinduism. Hatred is not Hinduism. And it is from them that Hinduism has to be saved and protected. Long back, Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, if Hindu Rashtra does become a fact, it will be, no doubt, be the greatest calamity. Hindu Raj must be stopped at any cost. This is not me. This is Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar has said long back in his book on Pakistan and the partition of India. When we say this, they quote, you know what Baba Sahib has said about Muslims? Yes, of course he has said about it. But what about this? Have you forgotten? The framers of the Constitution, the father of the Indian Constitution says, Hindu Rashtra is the greatest calamity. It has to be stopped at any cost. There must be some serious reasons for it. In the end, let me remind this August gathering what Sardar Patel wrote to Golwalkar on 11 September 1948, after Gandhi's assassination. All their speeches were full of communal poisons, all their RSS. All their speeches were full of communal poison. It was not necessary to spread poison to enthuse the Hindus and organize for their protection. As a final result of the poison, the country had to suffer the sacrifice of this, the invaluable life of Gandhi. We lost Gandhi. Are we ready to lose Hinduism? Are we ready to lose India? No, we can't afford to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Very heartfelt points. You gave us all the examples when the Muslim offenders were not adequately reprimanded. But look back in history, I think the time was 1946, when Muhammad Ali Jinnah was asked, perhaps the place was Kanpur, that what will be the fate of the 4 to 5 crore Muslims you are leaving behind in India. From Kanpur, Jinnah gave a very short answer. He said, you may sacrifice them. That was his empathy for the minority that was left behind in this country. So yes, human indifference probably does not know any borders and boundaries. We were definitely concerned for Ashutosh when we heard about gastroenteritis, because people generally get gastroenteritis after visiting Kolkata, after they've been through the street food and the rest of it. So at least on this visit, whoever is taking care of Ashutosh, please make sure that he is not really permitted to have any Kolkata street food, not this time. So, Ashutosh has given us a lot of introspection to do. And who better than the advocate who comes up to the podium, Sai Deepak.
Namaste. I'm grateful to the CTC for giving us this opportunity to discuss on a fundamentally suicidal topic, which is whether Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva. I would like to reformulate it as follows. Hinduism does need protection through Hindutva. And if anything, Hinduism needs protection from secularism. So the good part of going perhaps third in this sequence is that you get the benefit of all the gyan that has been spouted before. So let me start with this. Mr. Kunal Sarkar, in the opening introduction of Mr. Aiyar, mentioned that although he was born on the other side of the border, his heart is here. I think perhaps he's still on the other side of the border, insofar as his worldviews are concerned. For the simple reason that his script, I don't think, has changed in the last half a century, where he still conflates Hindutva and its origins with Savarkar and RSS, despite abundant scholarship saying so to the contrary. Fortunately, I think the saving grace of that side was Ms. Moitra, who finally came back to this land, which is actually the birthplace of Hindutva, to start off with Chandranath Basu of 1892. Now, she highlighted certain problems with his positions with respect to child marriage, women, so on and so forth. The only question that I have is, can she not think of any other non-Hindu worldview which has a problem with reform? Or which continues to justify child marriage and misogyny in the name of whatever? I would prefer that my head is still stuck to its torso. So I'll leave it at that. Now, this is the problem. So I will split my submission in 3 parts, or perhaps 2 parts, given the paucity of time, because this is not enough, but I'll do my best to actually keep it as short as possible, thanks to the training of the Supreme Court, so keep pace with me. This is the birthplace of Hindutva because colonial power was established in Calcutta. And therefore, starting from the Brahmo movement, with the establishment of the Calcutta Unitarian Committee, with Dwarkanath Tagore, William Adams, and Sri Ram Mohan Roy, not Raja Ram Mohan Roy because that was a Mughal epithet. There was a problem between 1830s and 1860s when they realized that in the hope of succeeding and becoming a part of the colonial establishment, they had no other option but to ape and mimic the ways of the British man. Between 1860s and perhaps 1909 is when the history of Hindutva begins, not in Maharashtra, not with respect to Savarkar, because when this starts, or when this history happens, Savarkar, I think, was born in 1888. And the foundations of Hindutva were established between 1866 and 1909. Starting from the imagery of Bharat Mata that was actually put out in the form of a play or a novel in 1866 by someone who wrote under the pseudonym Krishna Dvaipayana Veda Vyasa. It actually turned out to be Mr. Sudeep Mukhopadhyay, who basically came out with the imagery of Bharat Mata till 1909, which is when the Uttarpara speech of that inconvenient person was delivered, which is Sri Aurobindo. Everybody spoke of Chandranath Basu to Savarkar except Aurobindo, because Aurobindo sticks out as an inconvenient person for those people who are opponents of Hindutva, because I haven't found a more vociferous, ferocious and vehement proponent of Hindutva than Sri Aurobindo. In fact, he saw himself as an intellectual descendant of Swami Vivekananda because he believed that the very same Shakta spirit percolated into him. And this is what he had to say as far as Sanatana Dharma, nationalism and Bharat is concerned. And this I would like to share with the audience. Just give me a moment, and I think this should help. This is from Uttarpara speech. These are the last few lines of his Uttarpara speech. I'll quickly go on to the next point after this. In his speech, he basically makes the point at the end of it. I say that it is Sanatana Dharma which for us is nationalism. This Hindu nation was born with Sanatana Dharma. With it moves and with it grows. When Sanatana Dharma declines, the nation declines. And if Sanatana Dharma were capable of perishing, with Sanatana Dharma, it would perish, which is the nation. The Sanatana Dharma, that is nationalism, that is the message I have to speak to you. This is Sri Aurobindo, the former revolutionary turned rishi. Let me try and contextualize Hindutva for Bengal, because this is your product. This is the birthplace of Hindutva. Between 1866 and 1909, the rishis of this place, the modern day rishis of this place, realize that Hindu society is grasit and eclipsed by two specific invading colonial powers with expansionist mindset and a predatorial mindset. And therefore they decide that we need to respond. And that response also then reverse percolates into Brahmoism, because by 1867 they realize that Brahmoism is taking people away from Hindu Dharma and it is becoming a Western mimicry and is refashioning Hinduism through a Western lens. And therefore response starts, and guess who starts with the response? Debendranath Tagore starts the Hindu Mela, which subsequently becomes the Jatiya Mela around 1867. Which is why, if you were to take a look at the views of Sri Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Dwarkanath Tagore, you will see a stark difference between their positions to Debendranath Tagore and then to Rabindranath Tagore, by which time Rabindranath Tagore had recrafted what he called Hindu Brahmoism, because he wanted to take it away from Protestant Christian roots and bring it back to Hindu Dharma. This was the response. And then comes, according to me, the patron saint of nationalism, Swami Vivekananda. I'm happy that Sri Aiyar spoke of his speech, which was delivered in 1893 at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. And tomorrow being that great soul's birth anniversary, I would request people to actually go through that speech, because in that speech, Swami Vivekananda does not leave the opportunity to talk about the brutality and savagery that we have suffered at the hands of Islamic invasions. He says so in 1893 in Chicago. So we are constantly pitted in these kind of binaries. Hindutva and Hinduism are not binaries. Where does this word come from? I'm happy that Ms. Moitra actually mentioned Shakuntala Tattva and all other works of Sri Chandranath Basu. So when he was writing these series of tattvas, he also came out with Hindutva, because Hindutva, according to him, was a portmanteau of Hinduism or Hindu Dharma and Tattva, and therefore Hindutva. I agree entirely with Swapanda that Hinduism is a 19th century construct, because it was refashioned by the British on convenient lines. Until then, the word used for it was Sanatana Dharma. And this became a necessity not only to repel mental colonization, but also to repel physical colonization, because guess what? By 1902, Anushilan Samiti had to be established by Sri Aurobindo along with others, taking what inspiration from an essay written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee in 1888 called Anushilan. This is the history of Hindutva in Bengal. When someone tries to tell you that this is a North Indian invention, a vegetarian invention, sorry, this is the organic Shakta response to colonial invasion of Bharat. This is the Shakta response, therefore Hindutva has the blood of the Shaktas. Which is why Hindutva is recrafted and reimagined in the image of Durga Ma. Every revolutionary from this land who was a Shakta was expected to take oath on what? The Gita, and had to say Vande Mataram. Naturally, there were certain people who were excluded because they had problem with both. Therefore, if someone tries to tell you that Hindutva is hyper-masculine, that is because Bengali masculinity informs Hindutva. If someone tells you that Hindutva subscribes to Brahminical vegetarianism, sorry, it worships Durga Ma, and therefore it chadafies two things, meat and alcohol both. 3, wake up and smell the coffee, because this is not the subject of wine tasting discussions, because the neighboring country is doing something which I think will become the near future for us as well. You are living perhaps in the epicenter of the new great game, and if West Bengal does not become the bastion of Hindutva that it once was, then I agree, and borrowing lines from the Bengal files, we will lose the lighthouse of Bharat and the lighthouse of Hindutva. I will end with only one submission. Hindutva is a civilizational imperative, not a political tool, but there is nothing wrong in it being a political tool, because it is ironic for a politician to have a problem with a political tool. I really don't see what is the problem with Hindutva becoming a political tool, because politics is the last mile where you get the job done. But it is fundamentally a civilizational movement which has emanated from the society. Savarkar wrote only in 1922, which was published in 1923. RSS was established on Vijayadashami of 1925. Prior to that, Hindutva has had a history of 70 years. Stop buying this hogwash. Vande Mataram, Jai Shri Ram to the people in power here, and Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Ma Kali. Hindutva is the way of the future. This is the writing on the wall which they have a problem with.
Thank you to the audience. Thank you to Sai Deepak. Sai, I think you've done us a very great service on a rather chilly winter evening, reminding the Bengali of their history, because usually when we switch on our televisions from 7 o'clock onwards, it's actually total political cacophony and confusion as which party has scratched whose back and bitten off whose ears. So I think Bengalis need reminding of the histories a little bit, on which, from the journey you have come down in the early sort of part of the 19th and 20th century, 2 comments. That Vivekananda himself, when he himself writes the constitution of the Ramakrishna movement, he very consciously takes the Ramakrishna movement completely away from politics and completely away from any nationalistic political involvement, because he's sitting in Paris when he was a pretty sick man, writes down the entire constitution of the Ramakrishna movement. And later on, another bearded man with a robe who really couldn't participate in today's debate was really having terrible allergy to the concept of rationalism. You've mentioned him once, Rabindranath Tagore. So no wonder we Bengalis are all kind of a heterogeneity of our public opinion and philosophies. A great tour of history, but Sai Deepak, and this inevitably leads to a historian. And who else? Ruchika Sharma.
Chairperson, my fellow speakers, and the fantastic audience. One of the most frustrating things to do as a historian is to sit for more than an hour over there and listen to absolute ahistorical dribble being peddled on the stage. Terms like Hindu, Hinduism, Hindutva, Sanatan Dharma not being defined, chronology being disturbed continuously, and most of all, the history of Hindu and Hinduism not being touched upon. I am actually glad that the opposition was scared to bring in Savarkar, because they know how his idea of Hindutva sucks the soul of Hinduism. How his idea of Hindutva is antithetical to the idea of Hinduism. What is the idea of Hinduism? The idea of Hinduism, as born by its very long history, Mr. Dasgupta said that it's a 19th century construct. The ism, yes, the religion, not. I am actually surprised you would say that the religion is a 19th century construct. No. The core of Hinduism is pluralism, has always been. And which is why I would also, like Mr. Deepak, try to reformulate the argument of the debate itself. Hinduism is actually endangered by Hindutva because the core of Hindutva is exclusionism. It takes away from everything that built up Hinduism up till now. Hindutva is casteist, hyper-masculine. I am sad that Mr. Deepak said that it is built on Bengali masculinity. What is there to be proud about? How are you proud of the fact that this movement is built on Bengali masculinity when Bengal itself and its brand of Hinduism is built on a goddess? But I digress, and I must therefore lay history properly. Starting with the definition of the term Hindu. Hindu initially meant a geographical entity. So you have, of course, the Zenda Vesta mentioning the Hapta Hindu, Rigveda, 8th chapter, the Sapta Sindhavas, Darius's inscription of Persia, 518 BC, mentions Hidu or Hindu as one of the subjects that he governs. Same for Xerxes. Herodotus mentions Indoi in his Historiae. But all of these were primarily the Indus Valley lands. Xerxes' army had an entire military of Gandharans. So largely the land is Gandhara. The first time the subcontinent as a whole is regarded as one entity is by the Arabs, who give the term Al-Hind, starting from Afghanistan all the way to Indian Ocean. Itself, the term meant plurality because this entire area was extremely plural, extremely diverse. And don't take my word for it. Hyun sang, as well as I sing. Two travelers that come over here say, yes, the word is into, but everyone defines their territory by their own words. Starting from the 7th century, the term itself is pluralistic. A 16th century work, and before that Al-Biruni. 16th century work being Dabistani Mazahib, and before that Al-Biruni's, of course, Kitab al-Hind. Both of which say that Hinduism in itself, or the religion of the non-Muslims of Hind, is in a sense pluralistic. It is not defined by a single framework. And this is my problem with the opposition. They do not know how Hinduism has been formed. It has been formed by the worship of the likes of the goddess Pampa. Pampa was a local cult deity, assimilated into the Shaiva fold as a form of Shakti. By the worship of Jagannath, again a local cult deity, assimilated into Vaishnavism. By the likes of the worship of Krishna, whose assimilation with the local cowherd deity called Gopal made him extremely popular. But also included the worship of a very fantastic personality called Peer Baba Haji Ratan Nath, a Nath Panthi and a Sufi saint. His shrine is still there in Peshawar, dedicated to Shiv. Outside is Peer Baba's mazar. He is the Haji Ratan Nath of the same Nath Panthis, of which Aditya Nath, the CM of UP, boasts himself to be from. It is extremely sad that from there we've come to this. And it's absolutely interesting that Hinduism took from Mahayana Buddhism the art of temple making, the art of idol making. From Jainism, the concepts of Ashtadikpala, the 8 guardian deities of temple. William Sleeman, in 1849, when he's going through Bahrain, says Hindus and Muslims revered the shrine of Sayyid Salar. Neither of them required their religion to be changed. They could just worship whoever they wanted to worship. Mariamma was, of course, the Christian Mary. Interestingly, all of this was rubbished when the British came into being. I am glad Mr. Deepak said that Hindutva was born here because colonialism was born here. Yes, Hindutva takes a lot from colonialism. Most of all, its definition of Hinduism. When the English came here, they defined Hinduism negatively, not positively. Not as how I am defining it, as a pluralist entity. They defined it as non-Muslim, non-Christian. And that is exactly how Hindutva also defines Hinduism. Hinduism's inclusion was something which was preserved by the likes of Gandhi and Aurobindo Ghosh. Aurobindo Ghosh is being grossly misrepresented by Mr. Deepak over here. Do you know how Aurobindo Ghosh defines Sanatan Dharma? A universal creed that allows for all kinds of thoughts, cultures, and religions to exist. It is not, in any sense, exclusionary. It is not under any kind of threat. It is a secure idea of a secure religion, Sanatan Dharma. When Gandhi was asked by S. Radhakrishnan, what is your religion? He said, Hinduism, the religion of humanity. But of course, when Savarkar comes in And the reason why Savarkar must be brought is because it is his brand of Hindutva which survives today. And this, of course, is based on casteist and hyper-masculinist notion. Savarkar talks of a dark age, which is basically the age of the Mughals, the age of the sultans. He says nothing good happened there. The degeneration started with the coming of Buddhism and Jainism. The idol of ahimsa is effeminate. It brought in the Shakas, it brought in the Hunas, and therein started the degeneration. Therein lies the idea of excluding. You've excluded Buddhists, you've excluded Jains, you've excluded women. Effeminate ideals no longer work here. This is Hindutva. I'm going to take one more minute. Everybody did so. What's fascinating, therefore, is this dark age that he speaks of is completely ahistorically and absolutely misrepresented. It is actually the ahistorical understanding of India's long history that has led to Hindutva. The problem lies in not having good enough vocal historians, perhaps, who could have communicated to Savarkar that since Somnath was brought here in 1234 to 1236, the trustees of Somnath, the Panchakula, grant Ibrahim Nuruddin Piroja, the Malikut-Tujjar of Hormuja, lord of the stables, lord of the horses of Hormuz, a land within the Somnath Trust land to build a mosque there. Savarkar missed how Jagdu Shah, from the same line as Amit Shah, Jagdu built a mosque, one of the first, called Khimli Masjid, dedicated to his Ismaili traders.
Got to wind up now.
And I'm going to wind up with the fact that Savarkar says all Muslims and Christians over here are essentially converted. And if they want to find their way back, then there is only one way. They can, in the Varna system, become Kshatriyas like the Shakas and the Hunas did, but they must accept Brahmanical supremacy. And therein lies the essence of Hindutva. It's casteist, it's hyper-masculine, and it is deeply exclusionary, none of which Hinduism's long history attests to.
Ruchika, thank you, thank you. You know, you really poured a lot of cold water on us, because just as we Bengalis were trying to have a feel-good factor about our masculinity, you somehow sullied the mood a little bit. Right, Ruchika? You shouldn't do this next time you are in Bengal, right? And the other question, which you and I will sort out over a cup of coffee after the debate, is who taught you history? Right. Perhaps that is the more incisive question. Well done, Ruchika. And after her facts, after a bit of history, who else but Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi?
Distinguished dignitaries at the dais and in front. Today we are debating which culture gives you the authority to debate even on religious texts. It is only Hindu. Shastrarth in Vedas. And not only this, the most famous Shastrarth is between Adi Shankar and who was the Chief Justice in that? Mandan Mishra and Adi Shankaracharya, the wife of Mandan Mishra. A lady is being a Chief Justice of a discussion on religious texts. And on the other hand, you will find those who say there can only, on the religious aspect, there can only be sermon or precept. Only listen, otherwise your soul will go to hell. Other says, केवल एक तकरीर है, सुनो नहीं तो सर तन से जुदा. If you are ready to succumb to that, then you say, oh, it's secularism. And if you are ready to cherish that, the debating tradition from Vedas coming to lay, oh, then you are Hindutva. Then I would like to ask, why the term Hinduism? Why the ism is associated with all the religions which originated from India? Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism and Jainism. Never you have heard Islamism and Christianism? And more only in Hinduism, as our previous speaker was saying, you have used the word Brahmanism. The fact of the matter is that whenever the solar or lunar eclipse comes, recently you have seen, it has come just 12 hours before, mandir band ho gaye the. Sutak lag gaya tha. It doesn't need to stand and see when it has come. And it is been there in their Panchang. And which is exactly saying what the NASA's planetarium software is saying. If that is saying, that is ism. On the other hand, the moon has risen and the satellite is showing. But Maulvi Sahib is saying, when I will say, then you will be accepting that the moon has risen. And it is not Maulvism. That's why I am basic problem is, ism word is being associated just to demean. And what Hindutva is, Hindu Tattva. This is nothing but the basic immunity of the Hinduism is Hindu Tattva. Like in COVID time, if you are not having immunity, you are destined to be very much there on the perils. But on the other hand, I would like to say it is very much here on the eve of Swami Vivekananda's birthday. And Jawaharlal Nehru, in Glimpses of the World History, written in 1935, he says he is having no problem with Hindu nationalism. And he said Vivekananda nationalism is a Hindu nationalism. And on page number 720, he says, there is a very difficult to distinct between Hindu nationalism and Indian nationalism because they are so much overlapping. But unfortunately, they are not ready to accept. Another thing I would like to say, when you cherish Hinduism, it is called Hindutva. I would like to remind, you know where the Bengal is having the signature? The biggest scientific discovery of 21st century, which happened in 2012. In the CERN laboratory, Higgs boson was discovered, which is in common word is called God particle, the basic particle of the universe. And it is named after two scientists, Peter Higgs of England and Satyendranath Bose of India, who was son of Bengal. It is boson. Have you find anybody secularism, Surma, cherishing this? No. And on the laboratory of the CERN, you will find the dancing statue of Nataraj there. And a quote written by Fitzek Capra, who was an Austrian scientist, that now science has come to the conclusion that the perpetual creation and destruction of universe is like the cosmic dance of Shiva. When you cherish this, this is Hindutva. And when you say, no, it's not possible. Again, I would like to say what the contribution of Bengal is. Werner Heisenberg, who has given the uncertainty principle in his 1958 book, Physics and Philosophy, he has mentioned that in uncertainty principle, he got a clear idea after discussion with Guru Rabindranath Tagore on Vedantic philosophy. In Fitzek Capra's book of Uncommon Wisdom, on page number 41-42, he mentions that Heisenberg told him that when he came to India in 1929 or so, he has elongated discussion with Tagore. And then he got the entire concept of interconnectedness, uncertainty, and impertinence, which was looking crazy. He got the view, and finally, he was able to understand those things. When you cherish this, and today itself, everybody uses AI. Sam Altman has been asked the question, who is the owner of the ChatGPT, that AI is having the answers of so many questions. Is there any question which AI is not having? But you are having. You know what was the answer of Sam Altman? The absolute equivalence of Atman and Brahman. This AI is not knowing, but Sam Altman is knowing. And if somebody still is having such a colonial hangover of Macaulay and Marx, they will jump in. Oh, when it has said, he has said on 27th of December 2022 at 2:34 a.m., the tweet of Sam Altman is there, absolute equivalence of Atman and Brahma. Jo Shankaracharya ne kaha, Jivo Brahma na para. And now coming here. अब हिंदुत्व और हिंदुइज्म में क्या होता है? जब आप वंदे मातरम में तुम्हें दुर्गा दश प्रहर धारणी काट देते हैं तो हिंदुइज्म है, जब साथ लेते हैं तो हिंदुत्व है. And when you take it, the same Durga ji which you worship here, you get connected with Vaishno Devi in the north, Mumba Devi in the west, Kanyakumari in the east. And not only this, Dhakeshwari of Dhaka and Hinglaj Mata of Baluchistan. That gives you inseparable consciousness of this country together. और ऐसे अभी जे साई दीपक जी ने कहा था, तो ईस्ट में शक्ति का पर्व बहुत मनाया जाता है, दुर्गा जी का। तो त्रिपुर सुंदरी माँ का आशीर्वाद मिल चुका है, माँ कामाख्या का आशीर्वाद मिल चुका है, और काली माँ का आशीर्वाद कलकत्ते में मिलना शुरू हो गया है। डेफिनेटली व्हेन इट विल बी कंप्लीट, द ट्रू पावर ऑफ हिंदुत्व विल बी अप, नॉट टू डोमिनेट द वर्ल्ड बट टू मोटिवेट द वर्ल्ड। एंड ऑल्सो आई वुड लाइक टू से, क्या लोग आजकल माँ दुर्गा के बारे में बात करने लगते हैं? इट इज अ वेरी साइंटिफिक कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ अवर कॉन्शियसनेस। नव दुर्गा क्या है? प्रथमम शैलपुत्री, द्वितीयम ब्रह्मचारिणी, तृतीयम चंद्रघट्टेति। तो क्या होता है? फर्स्ट शैलपुत्री, इट्स अ बेबी एनर्जी। द्वितीयम ब्रह्मचारिणी, प्योर एंड चेस्ट। देन तृतीयम चंद्रघट्टेति, 4 dimensions. Then it comes gradually, चतुर्थम कूष्मांडा, प्रोजनी, and then ultimately leads to नवमम इसका अष्टमम महागौरी और दशमम सिद्धिदात्री। Means this is a gradual evolution of energy from inside to entire universe. When you cherish this, then you say, oh, you are Hindutvadi. And when you say, no, so many other comments which I do not want to make it here, then you are say, oh, you are a very secularist and rational person. And one thing I would also like to add, what Hindutva is, you have just seen Kumbh Mela, 66 crore people came. 50 lakh foreigners came who were not from Hindu Dharma. They came here with full devotion, taken a dip. Can you say, tell me anybody else in any religious, any non-Christian wants to go Vatican for religious purpose? Any Muslim wants to go Hajj for religious purpose? No. And if he asks, the first condition is get it converted. And that's why Rabindranath Tagore ji has mentioned that the problem with the other two religions, Christianity and Islam, is that they are not just satisfied to worship in their own. They want to convert other and destroy other. And this he has mentioned in Vishwa Bharati, 1982, Tagore's original work, volume 24, page number 375. Another thing which he wants to say, Dr. Ambedkar has said, there were so many hue and cries being made कि भाई Dr. Ambedkar Buddhist बन गए थे, but why he didn't convert to Christianity and Islam? Because he said, if I will convert to Christianity and Islam, the depressed classes may also follow and they may get denationalized. It is Ambedkar's writing and speeches published by government, volume 17, part 1, page number 241. And last I would like to say, what is Hinduism? जब हिंदू भागता रहता है तो हिंदुइज्म है। ढाका से भागा, चिटगांव से भागा, सिलहट से भागा, काबुल से भागा, लाहौर से भागा, कराची से भागा, आज़ाद हिंदुस्तान में कश्मीर से भागा, मालदा से भागा, 24 परगना से भागा, मुर्शिदाबाद से भागा, और जो जिस शहर में रहता उस शहर के पुराने इलाके से भागा। भागता हुआ अच्छा लगता है, जागता हुआ अच्छा नहीं लगता है। The running looks very good, but awakening doesn't seem good. So I would like to say, I am since standing here, I would like to say that Hinduism is now changing. If you look at the 25 years of 3 stages of India, first 25 years, 47 to 72, कुछ नहीं था. 73 to 98, 50 years complete होते होते center में कुछ change हुआ. 98 to 2022, another quantum jump for Hindutva. Now this Amrit Kal will take where Sri Aurobindo has said, or Swami Vivekananda has said, Sri Aurobindo has said that 175 years of India's transition is started by the birth of Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans, which is started in 1836. 175 years completed in 2011. कुछ तो हुआ 2012 के बाद हिंदुस्तान में, तो वो दिखाई पड़ रहा है. We all set to rise. And last I would like to say masculinity and others. ये कहा गया, तो जस्ट मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि क्या हिंदू है, इस बारे में अटल जी की बड़ी फेमस कविता है, हिंदू तनमन हिंदू जीवन रग रग हिंदू मेरा परिचय. बस वो कह के बात समाप्त करता हूं. अब हिंदुइज्म को ये भी देखना पड़ेगा कि मैं शंकर का वह क्रोधानल कर सकता जगती छार छार, मैं डमरू की प्रलयंकर ध्वनि नचता जिसमें भीषण संहार, रणचंडी की अतृप्त प्यास, मैं दुर्गा का उन्मत्त हास, मैं यम की प्रलयंकर पुकार जलते मरघट का धुआंधार, फिर अंतरतम की ज्वाला से फिर अंतरतम की ज्वाला से जगती में आग लगा दूं मैं, यदि धधक उठे विप्लव लेकर जल थल अंबर जड़ चेतन तो कैसा विस्मय, हिंदू तन मन हिंदू जीवन रग रग हिंदू मेरा परिचय। मगर इससे किसी को डरने की बात नहीं है। उसी कविता के अंत पे वो कहते हैं, होकर स्वतंत्र मैंने कब चाहा मैं कर लूं जग को गुलाम, मैंने तो सदा सिखाया है करना अपने मन को गुलाम। गोपाल राम के नामों पर कब मैंने अत्याचार किया, कब दुनिया को हिंदू करने घर घर में नरसंहार किया, कोई बतलाए काबुल में जाकर कितनी मस्जिद तोड़ी, भूभाग नहीं शत शत मानव के हृदय जीतने का निश्चय, हिंदू तन मन हिंदू जीवन रग रग हिंदू मेरा परिचय। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, thank you. In his own inimitable style, we had Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, who in the beginning of his speech really cautioned us that he had a great exception to anything that was called an ism. And we in Bengal realized it a little late because for 34 years we subjected us to communism. So anyway, so Mr. Trivedi, you should have warned us a little before. So now we try to stay a bit clear of isms, but on that note, as the evening rolls on, we call the first interjector. The first interjector, which is Ms. Mukherjee for Mr. Mani Shankar Aiyar. Please, come to the podium. You need to walk up to the podium a bit faster. So can we get, Natasha, get it organized. Yes, what's your question for Mr. Aiyar? You can answer it from there, Mani, okay?
Good evening, sir. I am Agnimitra Mukherjee from Mahadevi Bela Shishu Vihar. I am studying in class 9 currently. So I would like to ask you, is Congress failing to provide effective leadership to the liberal wing of Indian politics? Moreover, I want to add that Hindutva groups once provided protection to the Hindu families in Kashmir during their troubled days in 1990.
So, your question was primarily that Mr. Aiyar had a liberal point of view, but is that liberal point of view getting political leadership or not? Okay, yes. Mani, that's you.
Frankly, I haven't followed the question, but the interpretation that you've given to it is, do I, as a liberal, I feel as sorrowful as the lady Agnimitra did about the Hindus who've been killed in Bangladesh. But at the same time, I feel horrified that here in India, we have Muslims called Akhlaq, called Pahalwan, called Junaid, who have been killed. Why don't you mention them? Why is the fault always on the other side? Liberalism does not mean appeasement. Liberalism means recognizing evil, whether it is done by a Hindu or it's done by somebody else, whether it is done by a foreigner or whether it is done in India. Liberalism means that we accept whatever is available and we reject nothing.
Mani,
I
probably,
don't even reject Mr. Trivedi.
If I just interrupt, probably what the young lady meant was, like the concepts of Hindutva today has got a political thrust behind it.
Yes.
Has the liberal ideas got a political thrust behind it today?
We had a very strong political thrust behind the ideas of liberalism, which were largely attributable to Mahatma Gandhi and to Jawaharlal Nehru. Over time, the other side has taken over. But even today, the Hindutva forces are unable to get very much more than 1/3 of the votes cast, given a few points here or there. 2/3 of the electorate have never accepted the political philosophy of Hindutva, and therefore the liberal idea survives. Whether liberal parties do or not is quite a different matter.
Thank you, Mani. Thank you, Advaita. I think we'll cut it at that. Thanks. Thank you. Well done. Question coming up for Shopanda. Question for Mr. Swapan Dasgupta from Abhishekta Ghosh.
This is Abhishekta Ghosh from the BSc school. Sir, my question to you is, much has been said about the Vande Mataram recently. is it not a fact that literature like the Anandamot had alienated the Muslims from early freedom movements?
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishekta, for that question. It is undeniable that Bankim Chandra's Anandamot led to a degree of revulsion in the Muslim community. That's quite evident. Whether Bankim Chandra intended it to give it an anti-Muslim slur, or whether anything to do with the Mughals, any opposition to the Mughals should offend Muslims automatically is a matter of some bewilderment to me. The point remains that India lost its sovereignty. We recognize that 1757 was a very crucial year for that. But it's also very crucial to recognize that really the loss of sovereignty began almost in the 1256 or so, when the Delhi Sultanate really took over. That is when Indians ceased to have any role in decision-making over themselves. And that continued till that very late. If that association of Turkish, Persian, Afghan kings offends the Muslim community in India, who are principally of Indian origin, then I think there is something wrong.
I mean, just to add on to Advaita, would you look at it the other way? That could our initial approach to the freedom movement been a little bit more inclusive?
Whether that's a counterfactual question, whether it could be have more. The point is, the opposition to the partition of Bengal, which is really what started off the whole thing, has been called socially reactionary by Jawaharlal Nehru. They all thought that this was not the way to do it. Whether they believed that Bengal should be partitioned or not is another matter. The fact is that after 1905, the same partition was very easily repeated in 1947, quite ironically.
Absolutely.
And, there is one thing that about how Hindus or Sanatanists should respond to aggression. If you recall the last scene of Shatranj Ke Khiladi, it's a very telling one. You can say, the Hindus can go around and say, look, we have the loftiest philosophy. We have the Upanishads. We have invented much of mathematics. Our metallurgy is unparalleled. Our heritage cannot be disputed. And we are noble. And these people are vile. At the same time, what happens? They play on, they decide which grandmaster's chess moves to move, and on the background, the red coats keep coming.
Thank you.
That is precisely what is happening.
Thank you,
We
Shapunda.
look the other way, they win the battles.
Thank you, Shapunda. A few Bengalis have been mentioned this evening. Satyajit Ray was left out. He now finds a mention. How could in an evening in Kolkata Satyajit Ray not be figured? We have Anaya Raha coming up to question Mahua Moitra. Anaya?
Namaskar and good evening. I'm Anaya Raha of Lamartine for Girls Class 8. My question to you is minority appeasement causing increasing religious polarization?
What is, when you talk about minority appeasement, what in your mind actually, I mean, that's a very basic question. Does it cause religious polarization? What is minority, what in your mind is appeasement? When you're living in a secular constitutional democracy where every single citizen has equality before the law and equal rights, what is guaranteeing equal rights for all? Appeasement. When you have all across the world, whether you're looking at South Africa or you're looking at America or you're looking at Europe post the Second World War, historical wrongs any civilized government has come in and tried to correct historical wrongs, whether you had black economic empowerment in South Africa, and you come out with just say the Sachar report in India, or anything which is proven that a certain section of the population of post-independence India hasn't probably done well as the others. Is any government trying to correct that with equal opportunity for all, called appeasement? That is my problem. That is my fundamental question to you. So my issue is when you say minority appeasement, it's almost as if picked out of a Hindutva playbook. I disagree with the very term appeasement. I would say that you have to give me an exact example of appeasement, because to me, whenever we are trying anything to guarantee equal rights of people in this country and not make any section of society subordinate to the other, we're accused of being appeasing. So I have a problem with that, actually. So no, if you were appeasing people, sure, it would be something. But if you're trying to tell me that, calling someone a terrorist just because he's a Muslim and sort of taking a whole section of society and deeming them as terrorists or more likely to commit terrorist acts and treating them a certain way is calling appeasement, I disagree.
Thank you. I think the point was made. I think the question is not just Anaya's, but probably 3/4 of the discourse of the forthcoming elections will veer around this question. Thank you very much. Anaya, well done. You've had the courage to ask it. A question coming up for Agnimitra from Nilesh Ghosh. Nilesh, you're ready?
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nilesh Ghosh from Birla High School. And my question refers to you, Ms. Mukherjee, having spoken at length about atrocities committed
Ms. Paul,
against...
Ms. Agnimitra Paul.
My apologies, Ms. Paul. On having spoken at length about atrocities committed against Hindus on both sides of Bengal and about how Hindutva is a better alternative, then why do you think the Hindu nationalist bloc has yet been consistently unable to gain popular support for their ideologies on this side of Bengal, which I might remind you is still majorly populated by Hindus?
Sorry, can you repeat the second part?
Agnimitra, what he's saying is that you've referred to the problems on either side.
Yes.
So this part of Bengal, even statistically, we are 65%, whatever, 70% Hindu majority, but still you are not able to sell your ideology well enough to us. Why is that so? Are you a poor salesman?
Thank you for your question. We received 38% vote. We became 277 in 2021 election. And 38,000 votes have been deleted in my assembly, 58 lakh in entire Bengal after SIR. So you can understand how the present government has been winning elections from 2011 to 2024. 58 lakhs names have been deleted. So Mamata Banerjee and TMC has been winning elections through these votes. Dead voters, duplicate voters, Rohingyas, Bangladeshi Musliman, shifted voters. How do you think from 2 to 77
Just give us half a minute. I think to your deletion, Mahua has a... Okay, fair enough. So I think we leave the
but the present government,
in terms
TMC government,
in terms of your ideology,
it is not that people we haven't able to reach the people of Bengal. It is proper election haven't take place, and we already have 38% votes.
So your point is you are popular.
So we are popular, and
give proof of the concept.
May I just add?
Thank you.
May I just add one point? The BJP received 38% of the popular vote. But the BJP also received 52% or 53% of the Hindu vote.
Anyway, we await for the next election. Your point is taken. I think we travel that far into politics and no further. Thank you.
Indeed, sir.
Thank you, Advaita. Thank you. From that side, we have a question coming up now from Ashutosh, from Sharanya Chakraborty. Sharanya? Sharon, no.
Hello.
Quick. Be quick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharanya Chakraborty and I am from Delhi Public School, Newtown. Sir, my question to you is that as a product of the Anna Hazare movement, do you believe that the Anna Hazare movement was less as an anti-corruption movement but more as a political catalyst that led to the growth of Hindutva in Indian politics? Thank you.
I completely agree with you.
So
I completely agree with you. See, अब कह देंगे पॉलिटिकल होगा, बट बीजेपी में इतनी ताकत नहीं थी कि 2014 में अपने बल पे सरकार में आ जाते. They needed an Anna movement. They needed an Anna movement. You know what? Let me tell you. I was told
I think rather than the BJP, I think the point he makes is that the ideological shift that was seen in India, did that happen through this movement?
No. Anna movement has created a kind of it discredited whole Congress government and their whole apparatus. And on that, Mr. Modi was at the right time, at the right place, and he became the Prime Minister. But let me also tell you how the masculine Hindutva has moved. I would have been very happy and glad to listen from them if they have been quoting Hedgewar, Golwalkar, Devras, Bhagavat. Instead, they were quoting Vivekanand, Aurobindo, Tagore, Devendra Tagore, and all of them, who never had an iota of hate for any religion. And that shows how scared they are about their own godfathers. This is the only ideology in the world who doesn't want to talk about their own ideologues. They need an endorsement from Tagore and others. You know how the Hindutva has traveled? The masculinity has traveled. Now it is moving towards, from Golwalkar to Yati Narsinghanand, who's saying Hindus should have a suicide squads and should behave like a ISIS. This is the most dangerous thing. The problem is they hate Muslims, but in every thought process, they are trying to imitate Muslims and Islam, and that's the tragedy. They should understand this. They should introspect this.
Ashutosh, thank you. At least, point taken. And Shopunda made a very important comment that Dhurandhar 2 hasn't released yet.
No.
So, all these...
Can I respond to that? I watched that movie and I loved it.
Yeah, it was...
I love that movie.
Yeah,
I'm a great movie buff.
Yeah, pretty good. We'll be accused of advertising no more. Yeah, I think.
Will I be allowed to respond to the...
No, I think that's fine. Thank you. Well done, Sharuno. I think we had absolute consensus on that question. Moving on to Anshil Maiti, questioning Sai Deepak.
Good evening. I am Ashnil Maiti, a student of class 11 from St. James's School, Kolkata. My question for you, sir, is you have tried to separate the ideology of Hindutva from mid and early 20th century European ultranationalism. But how can you do so given the fact that few of the most influential figures of contemporary Hindutva, which is the ideology that persists today, including Savarkar, were followers and drew great inspiration from the leaders of these ultranationalists, radical, and sometimes even genocidal movements that plagued Europe in the 20th century, including but not limited to Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler?
So there are two parts to my answers. One, I am not going to separate or dissociate the movement of Hindutva from Golwalkar or Bhai Paramanand or any of them whatsoever. The idea was to basically submit that the history of Hindutva does not start from 1922. That's the basic submission. Second, if those are the yardsticks by which you wish to judge their position, what would your position be with respect to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and the allies that he sought to respond to a certain problem? I remain firm, and I've said this as much in my first book, and I'm not going to run away from that position, that the history of decolonial movement as far as Bharat is concerned must be traced back to not the 8th century, which is from the invasion of Sindh, but from the 7th century, which started with the early incursions into Sindh. I'm very clear about that particular position. I'm happy to make the submission that Hindutva does have a definition of an in-group and an out-group, which means if a particular theology has a problem relating its fealty to this land and its ancestors, and it effectively sees its ancestors as products of Jahalat and the age of ignorance, then I do not see the point in accommodating them within the Hindutva fold. I will not run away from this position whatsoever. Second, if this was only a matter of past which was archival in nature and therefore it is only the subject of history, that's a different issue altogether. But it is a question of a continuing present where those people are worshipped. And when people say that Aurangzeb is their wali and therefore he is a... What is a wali? Wali basically means someone who is a role model worthy of emulation. If he happens to be the wali of a good cross-section of the society, then I will continue to have a problem with that particular cross-section of the society. And I've said this on public record, so it's not an afterthought. I do not have a problem with Abul Pakir Jainuddin Abdul Kalam, who did not see a problem in the practice of his faith and Rudraveena and reading Bhagavad Gita. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Sri K.K. Mohammed, who was willing to accept and continues to be clear in terms of his historical acknowledgement of what has happened. So there I don't have an issue whatsoever. I certainly have never had a problem with Indonesian Muslims. I've never had a problem with Middle Eastern Muslims because they're very clear as to what the history is. They are willing to change. What is the problem with new converts? That's the only issue.
Thank you for a very sort of comprehensive answer. On that point, we have Aratrika Mitra questioning Ruchika Sharma. Aratrika, quick.
A very good evening. I am Aratrika Mitra from class 9 of the BSS school, and my question to you today, ma'am, is whether Indian history has become a victim of left liberal bias and whether you, in your speech today, choose to refashion it in that manner.
Thank you so much for
a little
that
bit of a quiet, let her enjoy her popularity for a few minutes as you answer the question. Thank you.
Let me know when I can start, sir. Oh, thank you so much. And in the spirit of all questions being answered, I'd first like to answer Dr. Sarkar's question as to who taught me history. I have an MA, MPhil and PhD in history. I've been doing this for 10 years. The plaque should reach Dr. Ruchika Sharma, but I'm willing to let that pass. Having said that, I am very glad this question has been asked. Has history been in the clutches of left liberal historiography or left liberal historians? Firstly, what does left liberal even mean? They are two different ideologies. And this is my problem with people who don't understand history. Left has had a very different history. Liberalism has a very different history. They are both diverse ideologies. But what is interesting is that everything that has been said by the opposition today was translated from Persian, was translated from Arabic, was translated from Sanskrit, was translated from Bengali by the same historians that they today label as left historians. It has now been more than 70 years of independence. The so-called Hindutva faction or the right-wing faction of the country has not been able to produce even a single historian with a single degree in history. None of these people have been able to produce a proper historian with an expertise in history. Whatever they say has been documented by the same people that they love to hate. And what has been documented is truly what has been written, what has been translated. The problem, of course, is that perhaps it has not been communicated well to the people, and therefore they come over here with their ahistorical dribbles saying, left has completely destroyed history. Whatever has been said by the opposition today is based on the books and writings of indeed the historians that they think are left. The whole idea that they bring over here of what is Hindutva, who are these people who are writing about Hindutva, analyzing and cross-analyzing Hindutva, analyzing and cross-analyzing the history of Hinduism that I spoke about today. It is the quote-unquote left liberal historians that they'd like to talk about.
Dr. Sarkar,
And what is equally interesting is that the idea that there is a left, I'm still left with time, sir, that the idea that there is a left historiography absolutely means nothing.
Okay, she has...
Because Marxism is a tool with which you interpret history, but actually Indian history has been interpreted in several other ways, all of which they regard as
Ruchika,
left
thanks.
liberal history.
Your point is taken. Your point is taken. And it is absolutely sealed and confirmed that you are the right kind of doctor, I am the wrong kind of doctor. So, right? So there are no points, 2 points about it.
Can I please respond to this for a minute?
Not
Because I'm a historian, the 19th century term...
Please.
He should be allowed to respond.
Wait a minute. You know, I'm no.
I'm responding to you.
No, 1 minute. Because otherwise we are very near to 8 o'clock.
Made about us, then we'll have to respond.
It'll look like
you're not the only person
wait
who's
a
got a PhD in history
Swapanda,
in this panel.
Swapanda, wait a minute. Calm down. So thank you, Ratrika.
That may be
We'll
but
have some time later to sort these issues. And in the era of Donald Trump, it will be jolly difficult to get more PhDs around. So anyway, so on that note, we have the closing interjector for Mr. Trivedi from Rudra Arav.
Good evening, Calcutta. This is Rudra Arav of Class 11 from Delhi Public School, Newtown. The RSS and Hindu Mahasabha remained aloof from the Indian freedom struggle, but still promoted communal rights as the Great Calcutta Killing of 1946, thus fostering the divide and rule policy, especially in Bengal. Sudhanshu sir, can you please justify how RSS acts and the hyper-masculine nature which RSS projects?
As far as the freedom movement is concerned, after the Gandhi-Irwin Pact of 4th of March 1931 till 1947, with an exception of 1942 for 17 years, can you quote a single movement taken by Congress? There was no freedom movement at all. From 1933, 34, 35, 36, 38, 39, rather than they joined the Congress government in 1937 Provincial Assembly's election, 1941 Provincial Assembly's election, and moreover this, sir, I would... Or not only this, and moreover, RSS was just 6 years of old. Yes, the question is asked to us because our forefathers were RSS. But who are the forefathers of Congress? Ellen Octavian Hume, the secretary of the British government, and for first 25 years, the various presidents of the Congress party were William Wedderburn, Alfred Robe, George Yule. Even till 1910, the president of Congress was William Wedderburn, secretary of the British government, when Savarkar got 2 lives of imprisonment. And name a single Congress leader who has been fired at the highest level, like the president, when you are comparing with Savarkar and others.
I think just if you illuminate the young man, that do you buy into the idea that RSS was a little bit aloof from the movement? You said there was no movement.
No, there was no movement after 6 years from RSS, with an exception of 1942. नहीं तो बता दीजिएगा ना, all historians are बैठे, they tell me 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, nothing. And not even a single leader. Sir, let me complete. No. Arey suniye sir, when you compare with Savarkar's Kala Pani, can you name a single Congress level national president level leader who has been to Kala Pani? No. Who has been, who has faced the bullet? No. Who has been...
Hello. Out of 598 people in Kalapani between 1908 and 1938, 68% were from Bengal. You let them...
I think as a matter of as a matter of fact, you are absolutely...
I think there was no freedom movement.
Wait a minute.
There was no freedom movement.
Prove me wrong. And give the dates of 32 to 47.
Give us a minute, please.
No.
I think...
Can I complete?
There was you will.
So I should be
Your
given a
point
time.
was taken. There were 298. Yeah, fair enough, please.
I apologize, I had no point. There was no freedom movement. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. There was no point. There was no freedom movement. We are in absolute error. Remenda ways. Sorry.
Since
please, I
38
request
and 47
you please
is being
finish.
mentioned, there was civil disobedience
You please finish,
movement
Sudhanshu
and
ji.
Quit India movement. I can't believe they've completely wiped
Ruchika-
away that history.
Ruchika, please, let him finish. You had your time, let him. Please, sir.
And the only movement quoted was civil disobedience, Savinay Avagya. And they were fighting the freedom fight. Civil disobedience is freedom fight. And those who are fighting, facing the bullets, it was not the freedom fight. तो मैं लास्ट में सिर्फ ये कहना, और अगर मुझे गलत साबित करना है तो डेट्स बता दीजिएगा, बट लास्ट में मैं कहना चाहूँगा, जो फांसी चढ़े नहीं, जो गोली खाए नहीं, जो काला पानी गए नहीं, लाला लाजपत राय के अलावा किसी को लाठियां भी नहीं पड़ी, उस लेवल पे उन्हीं को सारा क्रेडिट मिल गया, जिसे एक लाइन में कहूँगा कि नौरंगिए सियासते दौरा तो देखिए कि मंजिल मिली उन्हीं को जो शरीके सफर न थे.
Well, we take your point of view. I think with the evening. No, please. You will later on, not now. You will not now. I think we are moving towards the last 10-15 minutes of this debate, and on that point, we've heard a lot of vociferous, passionate points and counterpoints, and this is the time when we bring in our discussants to give us their synopsis. And can I request you to stick within 6 minutes, because as the temperature goes down, so does the blood sugar. Please, Prasenjit, Basu, 6 minutes is the time we'll give it to you. Please.
Earlier. Anyway, now it's been cut to 6. It was 8 minutes at the start of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Before I go into the rest, I just would like to answer the question about the freedom movement. So, the freedom movement, there were many aspects to it, but the idea that Hindutvabadis had no role in the freedom movement is the most ludicrous possible. We are a few kilometers, perhaps a few meters away from the Alipur jail, where Sri Aurobindo was jailed. Sri Aurobindo is a great Hindutvabadi. The quote from Sai Deepak is very clear. He said, to us, the Sanatan Dharma is nationalism, and nationalism is the Sanatan Dharma. When the Sanatan Dharma dies, the nation dies. In the famous Uttarpara speech. So, the idea that Hindutvabadis had no role, they had the most important role in creating the whole idea of nationhood. So, that should be set aside straight away. And almost all of those who went to Kalapani were in fact Hindutvabadis. And not all Muslims stayed away, by the way. Maulana Azad joined the freedom movement inspired by Sri Aurobindo. So some Muslims too were inspired by that original national movement. What do they know of Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma, who only Marxism and pseudo-secularism know? At the most basic level, the premise of this evening's debate is absurd. The word Hindutva or Hindutva is an exact Hindi or Bangla synonym for the English word Hinduism. But in order to allow a debate this evening, we have agreed to set aside that linguistic matter and redefine Hindutva to mean a political movement in defense of Hindus and the Hindu Dharma. In that sense, Hinduism or Hindu Dharma definitely needs the protective umbrella of political Hindutva. I will cite a few examples beyond what colleagues from this side have already done to point out this fact that Hinduism and Hindus to survive need political Hindutva. I will cite the examples of Sri Lanka or Ceylon, Burma, Uganda, and of course East Pakistan and what is now Bangladesh, and Kashmir, which is part of India, but where in the Kashmir Valley Hindus have almost been entirely ethnically cleansed. So let me start with Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, 1/8 of the population of Sri Lanka, who were Hindus, were disenfranchised. They lost citizenship the month after Ceylon got its independence from Britain. They were stripped of citizenship, and the Indian government, gradually over the next 17 years, agreed to take them back. One of those who emerged from that is the founder of one of the primary parties of Dravidianism, M.G. Ramachandran. And he was the descendant of that 1/8 of the population of Sri Lanka who were expelled and brought to India simply because they were Hindus. There were Muslims who had the same thing. There were Muslims who were also plantation workers. None were expelled to Pakistan. All of them were expelled to India. Similarly, that example was then followed by Ne Win in Burma, the country that is now called Myanmar. He expelled 400,000, almost all the Indians, in 1962. And then 10 years later, you had Idi Amin, that madman of Uganda, who expelled all the Indians of Uganda in 1972, 80,000 of them. If you've seen the movie Mississippi Masala, it refers to that as well. One of the potential products of that is now the mayor of New York, by the way. And then, of course, we have East Pakistan. One of the sad tragedies, the greatest tragedies of our subcontinental history, is that if you look at the book written by Gary Bass, there is clear evidence provided that 90% of all those killed by the Pakistan Army after Operation Searchlight and over the next 6 or 7 months were Hindus. 90% were Hindus. That fact was covered up by the government of the day, because the government of the day was a so-called secular government, a pseudo-secular government that did not represent the Hindus. So that is the beginning. And what we are seeing today in Bangladesh, and what we are seeing today in parts of West Bengal, is a continuation of the fact that political Hindutva is not present in Bangladesh, and those who are the successors of the Pakistan Army are continuing to do the same thing in Bangladesh today. Now, I completely agree, by the way, with what Ruchika Sharma said about Hinduism. She said the core of Hinduism is pluralism. Absolutely. Aurobindo. And of course, you've had our Prime Minister say constantly that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the core of India's philosophy and approach to the world.
Prasenjit, please conclude in a minute.
Aurobindo talked about Hinduism being a universal creed. Absolutely correct. She wants to define Hinduism as somehow being a constricted form of religion like Christianity and Islam. In fact, Hinduism is an expansive faith. It is an expansive system of belief that includes Gnostics. You can be a Gnostic and still be a Hindu. So there is no constrictive definition. It is a broad-based religion, and therefore has a place for all types of beliefs.
Let us conclude, Prasenjit, okay. Please. Please.
Okay.
Time's
up. And so I'll just leave one final, since I'm being asked to leave the stage. 8 minutes aren't up, but the last point I just want to raise with Ruchika is she should ask herself. She talked about the shrine in Peshawar, the Sanatani shrine in Peshawar. How many Hindus are left in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and in Peshawar in particular?
We will
will
interrogate a lot of these
Jai Ram
questions.
Krishna.
Thank you so much. And for the last 6 minutes of summary, we look towards Professor Mridula Mukherjee. And all the CDC organizers, if you can, brave yourself and get ready to count the votes. I think that will be a job this evening.
Well, can you hear me? It's not often that historians get to have the last word, and that too on an occasion like this. So I'm very grateful that you shifted me from the panel to the discussant so that once in my life I can actually have the last word, for whatever it's worth. I must confess to a feeling of considerable disappointment. I had expected the debate, especially from the side of the opposition, to be much more informed. I was disappointed that at least some people in the opposition reduced it to the beginning or the middle or whatever of their election campaigns. I don't think the Calcutta debate, such a prestigious occasion, is one that should be reduced to that. I'm saying this with, not in anger, but with a sense of pain, because I think occasions like this, where we get such a large audience, which is very rare, to discuss a serious subject, must be treated with more seriousness, and the debate must be well informed. Please take it in the right spirit from somebody who's long retired professor and used to giving advice, well-meant advice, even to those who don't necessarily want to hear it. I also must begin by sympathizing with my fellow historian on the other side, Swapan Dasgupta, whose discomfort is so evident, including when Ruchika wrongly said there is no trained historian on the other side. But you know, Swapan, when you were a historian and when you wrote your thesis, you were not on that side. So, and I could also see palpably his discomfort when flagrant violation of even the facts of history, evident, accepted, everyday facts of our freedom struggle was being violated. I think arguments must base themselves on substance. I am quite sorry again that the debate got, in this sense, reduced to arguing over simple facts, whereas it should have been arguments based on different interpretations, but with solid facts behind them. And I must say that I'm grateful to Mr. Shankar Aiyar. As a historian, I think I'm very, very impressed, in fact, by his rigor in terms of basing himself on actual evidence, that is quotations from his sources. One can agree with him, one can disagree with him, but he never misrepresented Gandhi or misrepresented Savarkar to make his arguments. And I think that is something I would applaud and admire him for. I would also say that I think Swapan Dasgupta kept the spirit of the debate very well, and I'd like to appreciate that about him. And he made, I think, valuable points which one can disagree with, and I could disagree with, especially maybe, but I'll come to that in a moment. I don't have much time. So there are 2 or 3 things that I would like to focus on, because probably I have about 3 or 4 minutes left. One of these is that I think, sitting here in Bengal, I was surprised. There were slogans which were completely unnecessary. Jai Shri Ram, Jai this, Jai that. And in the land of Bengal, in Calcutta, nobody said Jai Hind. Have we forgotten Netaji? And the word Hind, it's a very Urdu word. And he gave that consciously. And look at the history of the INA movement, where he built his different regiments on the basis of the entire galaxy of the freedom struggle. Maulana Azad regiment, Mahatma Gandhi regiment, Jawaharlal Nehru regiment. So this tradition of Bengal, nobody talked about. I'm really surprised because as historians, in fact, we often say, if you're going to Bengal, the first thing you're going to hear about is Netaji. And the whole evening went by. Why is it? Because in this entire narrative, Netaji stands out like a sore thumb. Because everything he did, everything he stood for, including when he joined, took the help of fascist governments, which he did, and for which we have various questions, but he never compromised on secularism. He never, the person who was with him till the end was a Muslim, you know, and so I'm saying that I'm really surprised. Again, the whole interpretation that is being placed on Vivekananda and on Aurobindo, as a historian, I would say it's a completely wrong interpretation. This was not Hindutva as we understand it today. You can say that they were admirers of Sanatana Dharma, and so was I. Can give you quotations from Mahatma Gandhi, where there's a greater praise even of Hinduism. He'll never give up, he said, Hinduism. He'll never give up his religion for anything, he says. And his religion was Hinduism, and he said it from the rooftops. But this is not the interpretation of Hinduism that you are imposing upon Aurobindo and you are imposing upon Vivekananda. Vivekananda, remember what he said. And I mean, you quoted him actually, so I don't want to repeat. My time is already run out, I think, yes. But I want to say that when you're making your arguments for Hindutva against, whether it needs, Hinduism needs protection or not, at least don't try all the time to borrow other people's grandparents. You know, I mean, there is something a little embarrassing about it. And if these are really your grandparents, how come you've never asked for a Bharat Ratna for anybody but Savarkar? Thank you.
Thank you, Mridula. Very comprehensive remarks. That will meet with agreement and disagreement of a similar nature. Members of the House, ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience. And as the temperature dips, showed us the blood sugar, we have to get to the final part of the debate, that you, the members of the House, sitting through it this evening, which way were you swayed? For us, it was like watching a tennis match. Whenever each one of them was speaking, we were almost swayed to one side and next to the other. But the end of it all, we have to come out of this evening having an impression, having an idea in our minds. When we were younger, there were a lot of national debates, but when we formed the CDC, we thought that we have to debate for the nation, because the people of the nation will have a lot of questions in their minds, the questions which should not cause either societal or internal turmoil, questions that we, the people of this city, have the courage of conviction to sit down, to dissect, to debate, and then it is now the time for you to give your opinion. So those of you who sided with the opposition, remember the motion of this evening. The motion of this evening read, Hinduism needs protection from Hindutva. So those of you who have formed an opinion in favor of the opposition to what Swapan Dasgupta, Sai Deepak, Agnimitra Paul, Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi told you all, put your hands up. Can we have a bit of light in the audience? You had a bit of audience light before? Okay. Thank you. Okay, wait a minute. We'll take a call. Let me see. I think a bit of audience light in the back was held. You had a light earlier on.
I can't see in the end.
No. Please let's have a little bit of light in the end. Now, those of you who think and who opine for the proposition, you agree with the motion, you agree with Mahua, Ashutosh, Mani and Ruchika that Hinduism does need protection from Hindutva, put your hands up. Huh? Right. I think on this evening, my impression will be that this House has not voted distinctly for one side or the other. So this motion carries on. And we the people, we the society, we the country, congratulate the speakers for debating absolutely elegantly, at times ferociously, and we will take some more time to make our minds up. Thank you so very much. You've been a fantastic audience. Thank you.
Good evening once again. I can see this wonderful lawns absolutely full. I think I've asked one of my colleagues to get more chairs at the back. We from the Calcutta Debating Circle would like to present a vote of thanks in association with Calcutta Club to the following sponsors for their support. I'd like to start with Telegraph, who has given us a wonderful print media publicity. And our primary sponsor this evening is Link Limited. And as it is mentioned here, Pentonic driven by design, is Mr. Deepak Jalan is here. We'd like to thank you. Are you here, sir? Yeah. And then we also have Manipal Hospitals, who is our knowledge partner with the slogan Life is On. And then our associate sponsors today is the Merlin Group, Jayantu Sarkar, Vice President Sales and Marketing, and Samar Sarkar, Director. If you're here, sir, we acknowledge you. And we have other associate sponsors, Gaurang Films, then I Can Fly, Tea Cafe. Then we have Urbana, Change Your World. Then we have Mega Moda Private Limited, producers of frozen shrimps. Then our digital partner is Asclepios Health. Our event manager is MSH and their team, which is, we thank Mr. Hassan for this continuous efforts to make this program very successful. And of course, this program, a final vote of thanks goes to the audience, which has already respected the 4:30 p.m. deadline. Thank you once again.